(8:10), 8:30, and 8:50. And then we have a number of other items for business, but also there are several items to be added because they were not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of this meeting. One is food establishment inspection reports were just received from the food inspector. We have warrants and payroll to be signed. We have some end of fiscal year 17 purchases. And late this afternoon, received some floor plans regarding project at Abbey Road in one of the new units and some amendments to that. And that one, really, if we can fit it in, because we do have quite a long agenda, but that, I would propose that if we find the time, that we consider taking it. But so any comments on those additions? Motion to approve the additions to the agenda?
Yes. Approved.
So moved and seconded?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, the first item I'd like to discuss, did I mention at 7:30 we're also having a presentation by SPAN DS? I think I neglected to mention that one. All right, so I'd like to talk about item 3 under Chair's business, and that's finalizing meeting minutes, because it's a challenge that we have. And here's the basics of the situation. The office gets quite busy with lots of people coming in, requests for information, fielding of emails, phone calls, walk-ins, what have you. Years ago, when the administrator's job description was written up, it was explicit in the job description that minutes would be completed at home, recognizing that they do require some concentration to get them done precisely. So that was the practice, but then along came the work-at-home policy in the town just a few years ago that requires some approval. And we recently had approval for all the minutes that we were getting completed, the backlog that we had. And frankly, it's very effective. They get done quickly. There have been times when Ellen has worked at home and completed them and then come into the office. It's very clear that work is being done because, Eureka, we have minutes at the end of it. So it's not as if there isn't a way to track what's being done remotely, and it is much more efficient and effective. So the town administrator was approving it, but then was reconsidering the issues. I'm going to summarize a lot of emails and discussions over many, many, many months, probably, frankly, a year, starting last May or June is when we started talking about this. So the administrator eventually came to think that because the job description states that the work will be done at home, and the work-at-home policy talks about designated hours, designated work hours is when someone should be there, that this should really just be handled as part of the normal job duties. Town council reviewed it and had a different opinion that it really should be something that the town administrator approves periodically. However, we set up that arrangement. But it does get challenged periodically by people, but it is not simple to get this work done, and it's important to get it done. And so I just wanted to bring it to you on how we'd like to proceed. If anyone has any comments or questions.
I would think that it's important that the office is open to the public for the hours and the types of business that are typically done during those hours, whether it's submitting plans, having us come in and sign them, deed restrictions, all of the administrative work that Ellen does while she's in the office that require interaction with people, whereas writing the meeting minutes is not something that requires her to have interaction with people, and as you said, it actually requires focus, because sometimes there's subtle issues being discussed, and the language can be difficult and important. And I think it would be in everyone in the town's interest that the meeting minutes get done in a timely manner. And I'm also an advocate that they get posted on the website. So I would say that this is something that I guess I don't think it serves the town to prohibit Ellen from working on the meeting minutes at home. And like you said, the proof is in the pudding. She'll be able to finish them. People will be able to see them, and we will be able to review them in a timely manner. And it's clear that the current system and expectation isn't working based on the workload she has. So I would move that we should permit her to do them at home and come up with a simple way to allow that.
I guess I'm certainly supportive, and I'm sort of ultimately a pragmatist. The thing I'd want to make sure of is that it's sort of compliant with whatever we need to be compliant with in town, and that sort of town council and the town administrator are concordant on that, so it's clear we're not kind of re-adjudicating the issue over time. It sounds like the alternatives we'd be discussing would be in-office work without public access to the office for that period of time. So there's sort of two strategies: are either physically being in the office with the office not available to the public while those tasks are completed, or being at home completing those tasks for work
And-
hours, with potentially
Yeah.
the office being available for, if the agents there or other things are available. Are those kind of the two choices?
It's a little hard to shut down the office since it's a shared office with Planning Board and Conservation Commission. So it would be hard to...
Building department files.
Yes. So there are a lot of people going in and out. So, and as I mentioned, when I have meetings with Ellen to go over budgets and other things, I bring other work with me because we talk, and then she needs to do things, and then we slip in a little bit more time. So it is a busy period. So it is something that, right, town council and the town administrator have wrestled with, too, along with us, trying to figure this out. The posted office hours are covered, not only by Ellen, but we have a clerk, so the clerk is there for those, but Ellen is usually in for long days and past the normal end of the day time as well, so she does put in a lot of time. So there was something else that you meant. Oh, posting of minutes, just so you know.
Yeah.
So, would you
yeah.
like to explain the
Yes,
update?
in the past, they were not posted on the website because I was instructed not to post them on the website.
Right,
I
yeah.
always felt they should be. The town is moving to a new website, and we've been working with the contractor. And just today, I sent all of 2016 minutes and all of this year's minutes. I made an executive decision myself, and I sent it to them, so those will be posted, and going forward, I'll post them.
That's excellent.
So, the one other thing I could think of, so there was an open meeting law complaint, and we received a letter from, which one? Attorney General?
Yeah.
Attorney General's office, and their instructions were that the language is loose. It says the minutes should be completed in a timely manner. So that's open to discussion. One can see that there are many boards and committees that don't have minutes posted immediately. So part of their interpretation in the letter is they viewed it as a holdup on the board side of approving, without realizing that these are just complex minutes that we can't have anyone do, just anybody do. And they were saying, well, if you were at your next meeting, you should just be approving them, but it's not the board's, we could be the holdup, but that's not the real roadblock. So one possibility is whether we'd want to, since historically, I think you've been able to get, not always, but 2 sets of minutes done in a day, whether we think it's more efficient to just have minutes done 2 at a time. And
Yeah,
then,
that depends on the length.
On the length of, so-
meetings. I mean, that's,
all right, so maybe we should hold
Yeah.
off that kind of
Yeah.
decision until, we'll see how it goes. Try the after every meeting kind of arrangement, and then.
I'd rather do that and then come in if I finish at noontime.
Okay.
I mean, if it takes me till 3, I might not come in. But it depends on the meetings.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I'll note is that since in my travels through town hall to find out how were people dealing with this, there are several boards and committees that have explicit minutes clerks.
Right.
And they work from home. And one of the questions I got from somebody was, well, why don't you just have all of your meetings filmed? And then the person could sit at home and do it from the film, but we're not the top priority, as you know, for being filmed. It's great when we can be, but that's not reliable. And again, we can't have just someone who's not familiar with the subject matter doing these minutes, otherwise there will be so much checking that has to be done of them, so that it would reduce the workload a bit, but it would still be there in another way. So there are just different methods out there, and it's not one of the ones that applies to us, and I'm not sure how the other groups work it, with people doing the minutes who automatically do them from home, and it's assumed that they're doing it from home. So in any case, let's see, so any comments, Peter?
I've been told if I want to be heard, I should go to this microphone. I'd just
I
like to
think,
give
state your name.
Peter Lifford, Doppingbrook Road, prior member of the Board of Health. I'd like to give a 3-decade perspective on this, because this is not a new problem, and I think people should understand that it's not a new problem, and that in the past it has worked extremely well for Ellen to actually, organize minutes from home. And as you point out, the new town bylaw created a bit of a problem with this. It would not be a problem if the physical office for the Board of Health could be segregated. If it were in a closed office, if you could close the door, pull the blinds, and do the work. Same animal as, sitting at home and doing it away from the interruptions, because the posted minutes, as you pointed out, are fully staffed. But if Ellen is to work in a shared office where people are coming in and out, it's almost impossible for her to tell somebody, I'm sorry, I'm busy. That's just not in the public interest, and it's not in the Board of Health interest. So I think your perspective is right on, and I think you've expressed it quite clearly. I don't hear any disagreement on the board, and I would encourage you, and I hope that the town administrator, can work cooperatively with you on this, because it is the only reasonable way to avoid the conflicts that are coming up with people saying, well, they're not timely. Well, they're not timely because of things beyond your control. And I think it's important that people understand that and appreciate that, and that I applaud that you're working so hard to make it timely and make the whole situation work. But it is not a new problem, and it's one that, must be dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you. It is a new problem in the sense that there's the new bylaw that it gets challenged, and it's just made that complicated because the minutes were usually ready by the next meeting for over 2 decades. So
I mean, I
that
think
way worked.
it strikes me as somewhat contradictory to complain about minutes not being done timely, yet also say, but you can't do it here and you can't do it, put a lot of constraints on someone's ability. So I think, like we've been saying, it's not like Ellen's charging extra hours and not producing the materials that are to the benefit of the town. So I think it's an easy check. It's not like, we can't be sure if she's going to get them
Right.
done, so we
Right.
will be sure.
We have something very
So
tangible
there's-
as
So
a
there's
result of
record
that.
keeping, and, would that help allay some of the difficulties with town council and administrators?
I could find out, since, again, the town administrator felt he had found a way forward, and then town council had a different opinion, so to move this along,
I guess,
oh, go
I
ahead.
mean, I guess the question I sort of have is, like, one of my hats is in healthcare, where lots of rules are incredibly absurd, and so, like, being compliant with absurd rules is something familiar. But the absurdity doesn't make it not the rule. And so I think for me, it's a question of, I think we sort of need guideline from the town administrator to say, what does it need to look like for us to be compliant with the bylaws? And if the current work environment we're able to provide Ellen in town hall isn't sufficient for that, and working from home isn't an option, then we need to work with the town to sort of say we need to have workspace that's appropriate for our staff to do the work we're asking them to do. And so those are sort of the two pathways, but kind of saying, please work in this environment that doesn't work to do this task. Why isn't this task done? And kind of putting Ellen in the position to manage that is sort of seems unreasonable. So ultimately, we need to figure out, is there a
Right.
way with appropriate oversight that remote work activity is permissible? If there's not, what are the strategies for supporting an appropriate work
Right, and the
environment here?
bylaw does say that you go before the town administrator and you ask and say, we need this time. So that is a possible route, and just have to, so, oh darn, there was something else I was going to mention. All right, I don't remember at the moment, but do we have a motion to, unless somebody else would like to, do we have a motion to authorize someone on the board, doesn't have to be me, to go to the town administrator and convey the desire of this board to have the minutes done by Ellen at home so that they're done in a timely manner?
What I might suggest, because I don't want to get too anchored to one solution. Like, I think there are multiple ways to skin the cat. I think home is a historical one and certainly seems like a reasonable workflow, but ultimately, it's not the only possible solution. And so I think to go to the town administrator to say, we need a solution other than baseline state. This is one idea, this is another idea. We welcome a third idea, but we sort of just need the cat skinned.
Okay, let me, so there are a couple other things. The idea of a separate office for Ellen, the office works great, having the different pieces that relate to projects that come before the town in one office. The dynamic is great, and I would hate to see that lost. So even though that sounds good, to put her someplace where she can shut a door. And
Maybe
then the
that's
other
temporary.
suggestion that was proposed for this board was that we do the minutes. And
I
don't-
vote no. I have
I
enough
wasn't
work.
so keen on that. And Ellen
I have a
does an
full-time job.
amazing job that we could never do in
This is true.
terms of the precision of the procedures and processes and all the rest. So, but that was
No.
the solution offered up for us at one point. And
What about sort of workspace that's available? Because it sounds like this is sort of a half day of work every 2 weeks,
Not necessarily. Sometimes it goes till
somewhere
longer.
between a half
Yeah,
day or a day.
to-
But
to- Yeah, somewhere between a half to a full day.
so I think
It
it's sort of
varies.
separate from the, we need to ungroup these things, but to kind of say, is there a workspace for this particular task that can be utilized?
But then it has to be coordinated so that there's at least a clerk in the office for the dedicated hours that we have to be available to the public, so
But that's the same from work from home, right? I mean, if she's two doors down or wherever home is, those issues for public access to the office would be the same.
But are you doing that during the scheduled hours, or you're
No,
not?
this posted hours only go till noon
Yep,
because of that.
okay.
I'm typically here till well after
Right.
4:30. But the posted hours are till noon to try to funnel people to the office when there's always someone there. So,
right, well, I move that Matt come up with interesting ideas with the town administrator to help us to stay timely in preparation of the minutes on a schedule that works with Ellen's, dedicated hours and the office's dedicated hours, but still accomplishes preparation of the minutes. So,
I'll second that.
okay.
Wow, fantastic.
I'm enough of the glamour.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Terrific. Okay. Let's see, we have just a few minutes before a great presentation coming up by Spandy S.
Can I just, so it
yes.
sounds like we're all concordant in posting the minutes. Is there anything in terms of posting to the website? It sounds like we're uploading last year's minutes, this year's minutes, and it sounds like collectively we're
Yeah,
comfortable
and moving forward.
Yeah.
Do we need to do anything to formalize that, or are we
No, I think it is.
Perfect.
It's underway.
Yeah.
lovely? Thanks so
So-
much, Ellen.
Ellen got on that right away, so. Oh, my goodness, anything short. Jeez.
Do we want to talk about, can we do Sharp's disposal?
Yeah, that seems short.
Okay, if you think, go ahead.
I guess so. So the Sharp's disposal issue came up because it sounds like there is some confusion in the community about where to appropriately
Right.
dispose of Sharps. And so we had a Sherborn community member who appeared at Natick Town Hall with Sharps, and Natick said, "You are not, what, a Natickite? Natickian? I don't know, where do you if you're from Natick?" And said, allowed them to dispose, but it sort of highlighted an issue that comes up on occasion.
Yes.
And it sounds like our recommendation is there's a drop site in Framingham. And it's a question of whether we collaborate with Natick for a kind of a
Correct.
shared site. I guess the question I have is, does the Sharps disposal site in Framingham represent compliance with the Massachusetts law, kind of in terms of what it requires of communities, as far as we know?
As far as I know,
Okay.
it does. It's not in the best area of
Because I suspect
Framingham.
many of them are not.
And I tend to think a lot of residents wouldn't want to go there. There's no parking,
Okay,
but they take them.
yeah.
Okay, I'll also note, so sharps, which are needles and other things that may be
Sort of like
contaminated
syringes,
with bloodborne
insulin needles,
pathogens, right?
Allergy shots, folks who do fertility stuff.
Yeah. So it used to be that only medical facilities had to manage those appropriately, and then 5-ish years ago,
2010.
they made it so that home use of sharps also had to be taken care of. And there are different ways pharmacies can provide little containers that people put them in, and then you can bring them back to the pharmacy. I believe they're drop-off centers, but it sounds like, I wonder, so Framingham may not be as convenient. I also wonder if the Natick drop-off is free, and then the idea is that we would contribute to
they
that
are.
and be underwriting it. But I think so,
It is
there's
free
some where
to
you can buy a
residents.
mailer and
Yeah.
send the
Yeah.
materials back or pay the pharmacy or whatever other group takes them. So I guess it's also the free aspect that's at issue. So it would have to become a budget item for
Yes.
us.
Yeah.
And is that something we could look, it doesn't sound like anything has acutely changed, although it certainly seems like this could be an issue for the town to kind of provide better service to residents.
Right.
When I sort of Google mapped it, it was like 11 minutes from town versus 9 minutes from town and 4 miles versus 5 miles. So, I think it's a little bit Natick Town Hall versus JRI Rise, I think are different experiences. And so, I sort of wonder if we can put it into next year's budget cycle as opposed to needing to do anything off-cycle because nothing has acutely changed.
So I guess if we put it into the following year, really, we've already got the budget for the fiscal year that starts July 1st. So the question is, would we be waiting until July 1st, 2018, or would we go before advisory soon to say, we'd like to get some more money to fund this? And we could approach advisory and also get their input on it as well, so it's not an automatic
Right.
on
'Cause
our part, but...
we want to make it easy for people to do the right thing.
And it is a health hazard if they're not managing the sharps
Yes.
properly. And I've certainly been in workplaces where we come upon sharps that are not managed properly, and really nobody wants to go near them, so, because you don't know. So shall we,
So it may make sense then to take it to advisory this year to kind of get their guidance and see what that looks like. And if there's not receptive for this budget cycle, then consider for next year's kind of routine budget cycle.
okay, so do we want to do that when advisory starts meeting routinely, or do we want to see if they're having any meetings between now and, I think they usually start meeting in the fall, probably to get ready for the next year, something like that.
I would sort of push it to the fall just because I imagine summer schedules are so hard that, you know, if they are meeting, it's probably for the most pressing issues. And while this is an important one, it's not something that's sort of particularly new. You know, we've sort of been in this position for a number of years and would love to resolve it, but it's not an emergency.
Okay, all right, so, in agreement? So maybe on one of our September meetings,
Okay,
let's bring this up and come up with a timeline for coordinating with advisory on that. Okay.
So I should approach Natick and tell
And
them
say that,
we are
yes, we're
possibly
investigating,
interested. Okay.
providing some funding support,
Conservation, yeah.
if they will permit Sherborn residents
And I
to.
can probably get a more accurate cost.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay, so Spandy, yes, would you like to present? So, actually, I'll let you folks explain, and there's microphone up here. Over there. And I did look at them on the website, so.
Okay. Yeah, why don't we put them there? Okay, just
Thank you.
give for your pleasure reading.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one.
Where would you like me to speak? Just this microphone?
Yeah, if that's okay with you.
I don't think so. So I'm Joni Twining with Spandy S, and this is Megan Sobolowski, our secretary for this year. Our co-chair could not be with us tonight. And we're here because we come and do a year-end summary. The boards of health offer us some funding, along with other organizations in the region. And so I've just given them, and if anyone's interested, I have a few copies, our year-end annual summary. And it's always a really fun document because I think along the way we don't always keep track of how much we're actually doing as a volunteer organization. We're largely a parent-based volunteer group, and while our work is very much based in the school, with the school population, it trickles over into the community as a whole. And just to briefly highlight what's in the report, we kind of break it out as school-based or community-based initiatives, and sometimes those two things overlap. So our mission really is threefold, and it's about heightening awareness of substance use prevention, keeping that conversation from being stigmatized and being a conversation that's ongoing, providing educational opportunities and curriculum to parents and kids and the community and events, and encouraging strong support networks through our stakeholders group, which is a roundtable that happens twice a year with clergy, police, and members of various boards, as well as faculty and admins at the school. So it's a really powerful group, and one that everyone takes a lot away from and brings a lot to. So for our school-based initiatives, for about 4 years, we've been using a social norming campaign, which we had hired a consultant to help us utilize, and it's basically a way of assessing people's norms and what they think is happening, how many people do this or that, and what kids assume, and then using real survey data to basically debunk those myths and help kids understand that there's actually, that the picture is much brighter, that their assumptions are quite often flawed. And so the social norming campaign continues through the use of our postcard mailers, posters. We use the Stall Street Journals, which the kids love using statistics in school. So we sort of infiltrate their daily experience with the good news and prevention information. We also have a parent social norming campaign, which is the mailers that come home with tips, strategies on handling situations, statistics about the population, and those have become pretty well recognized. This year, we had hosted a visit by a recovering addict by the name of Jared Owen. He was unable to speak to the entire school, but he spoke to mixed age groups who were free during certain periods. It had to be orchestrated. He was a very high-achieving MIT graduate student and top of his high school class, who spiraled into a really terrible path of addiction and arrest and rehabilitation. And part of his recovery journey is to share his story, and he comes with his attorney, who's a wonderful advocate for youth, and sits with the kids and really tells them what he would have done differently. It was a really powerful event. So it was great to host him. We support a peer leadership program in the middle school. They run an event every year that's really just about healthy decision-making, fitness, because we realize middle school is a really critical turning point where you start to talk to the kids and encourage them in a healthy direction. We hosted, with the funding from Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, a fifth quarter event for the second time, which was an example of an alcohol-free fun night where we hired games and pizza and DJ, and the kids can just come have a venue, and we'd like to do some more of that. We have our fourth annual Positive Role Model Award on senior night that we award, and that's an entirely different process of students submitting essays. A panel vets them. It's not SPAN that vets them. It's actually a panel of faculty, admin, and police. And College Transition Night is something that's co-run with Guidance. It's a fabulous night for senior parents to talk about the expectations of college life. And we also provide curriculum at open house nights and various nights throughout the year where we just provide handouts to parents and keep that education stream going. And lastly, one other campaign we run is called Faces of Prevention. And this was something where we photograph and interview various people who are stakeholders in our school, mentors to our kids, and really get them to verbalize their opinions and why they are involved with prevention work. On the community front, we continue to keep an eye on how we can keep information available about the opioid epidemic. We held a fall educational panel around question 4 last fall with Pilgrim Church's support at the community center. That was a well-attended event, live and also through webinar. We held a spring coffee, which is one of our Conversations That Count events, which is parents can just literally come and round table. Often senior parents are interfacing with middle school and freshman parents, dialoguing around what happens at prom, or just simple questions that people are curious about. And at the end, the police come and sit and share and just chat. It's to break down those barriers. We have our obvious website and Facebook page that we invite people to like, and you'll see articles coming through that are timely. We particularly would like to express our gratitude to the Sherborn Board of Health. They make some funding available to us, and when it's appropriate and we have a project that benefits the community or a larger issue, we'll check in and say, do you think this is appropriate? So what we felt was that our Faces of Prevention campaign was not getting enough spin. It was really these incredible interviews that were on our Facebook page or on our website or on the monitors at school, but the kids don't really have time to read them there. And we were talking about how to get more play out of those. And simultaneously, I felt that along with our social norming campaign, we needed to do something that was really kind of visually powerful and that the kids was right in front of the kids. And so we came up with the idea of making these posters. And we have 3 of 10 here just as examples. And we have the librarian and 2, Dover Police Chief McGowan and Detective Godino, who's so involved at the school. He's actually a track coach, if none of you know that. He's involved with the track and field, and it's just an amazing partnership. So we got all 10 printed and up in Lindquist Commons before prom, and I thought that was a really impactful time. They went across, ironically, we had 10 windows at the front of the cafeteria, and so they just made this incredible statement, and they stayed up through all the end-of-year activities. We got a lot of positive feedback on them, and now we can move them around and use them in libraries or town halls or maybe in the new library renovation that's happening at school. Because I watched a couple of the kids walk up at lunch that first day and start reading, and that was a wonderful moment. So I think it just says so much to them to see these teachers and admins, the principals of both schools, the police, answering these questions and all giving these wonderful answers. So this would not have happened without the Board of Health support. We do not have a big budget. All of our projects are kind of piecemeal funded from whoever's the appropriate group, and this was a big one, so we thank you very much. And, we hope this wonderful list of things can continue to impact our communities around these issues that are so timely right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll make a couple comments, others can make them as well. So I read through these, and it is nice to just hear what people are thinking, and these are people that are known to the kids. And so just how they express it and what their concerns are, and they're all different. And so it was great. And I am looking forward to seeing them around town because I think it would be good. There's a lot of advice for parents in there, too, and
Yes.
in terms of speaking with kids. So there's that. And then on the social norming, just in case people don't know, basically what it's doing is surveying kids and finding out what their behaviors are. So instead of a kid thinking they're the only ones who aren't drinking, they learn that 85, 90% of the kids are not drinking and don't care if anybody else is drinking and don't feel that anybody should be pressured. So to know that is so different than thinking that you're in the minority. And the same for the mailers for parents. You see things like, you don't know, should I call the party before my child goes? Is that invasive? And then you read that most parents are fine and would rather have people call ahead of time if their child is scheduled to go do something with their child. So it's just important information to have because it changes your perspective.
And the fact that it's empirical, so we do use the Metro West Health Foundation survey every other year, and in the alternate years we use the survey of the social norming campaign itself. So we were able to continually feel the pulse and get some data, because it's not about just expressing your opinion about these issues. You really have to come at it with real data, and we have in our back pocket some really powerful people like Marissa Silveri from McLean's Hospital, who's spoken on the brain research she does with MRIs, and alcohol and substance abuse in teens. So, you're really bringing just a true education around the issue. So,
Can I ask a quick question, though?
absolutely.
So having had one child go through DS and another in the high school right now, the one thing that I've observed that maybe not that SPAN has focused on this, but that the school maybe could use some assistance in dealing with is mental health of teens. We have a very high-performing school district. A lot of kids put themselves under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of type A, and we've been doing things with, I know, de-stress, DS, but there's lots of other things that can impact kids' mental health, including things like cyberbullying, which, again, it's kind of an evolving area, but it's pretty common, and there's all kinds of anonymous websites that are out there that kids maybe say comments that are very hurtful to the recipient. And so I guess I was just wondering, is that an area that maybe SPAN could look at? Because I think some teens turn to alcohol and self-medication because they're anxious, because they're stressed, because they're dealing with, whether it's school stress or something at home in their family. And I don't know that there's a lot of great outlets or that there's a community that can support kids who are going through those kind of things. So that's just food for thought.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's not really directly under our umbrella. However, we absolutely look at the, like you said, one thing leads to another. And with Challenge Success happening, I've spoken with them about, doing events together because obviously they are so related. I know that the high school hired an adjustment counselor who does some of that work, and it's somewhat guidance related, but it is still a really hard one. The school will occasionally send a letter home when there's a red flag on a site. And so they do handle that really personally and directly. And that's come up now and again, and they'll ask parents to please be aware of this particular or that particular site and your children's technology use. So they try to handle that as best they can, but they are very much related issues.
Yeah, so I think it sounds great if you guys could collaborate maybe on a couple of events. It just seems like we should be connecting the dots a little bit. Not that that's your responsibility at SPAN DS. It's just something I've observed.
Yeah, it's just really, I think it's just a question of fitting it all in sometimes. That's the hard part.
So my background is I'm a physician taking care of patients in the hospital, and so
Okay.
have seen multiple overdoses and near deaths this year, and many people with consequences of heroin use. Kind of looking quickly at your website, I don't see anything about naltrexone on it, and I've sort of wondered how you guys balance that, or if that's something we're kind of communicating for kids who are taking at-risk behaviors, kind of harm reduction strategies or other approaches, if you've thought about it, if it's kind of out of scope right now, but would just, encourage one of the life-saving things we can do to kind of think about ways to incorporate it in our community.
So I believe it's in the schools at this point,
Okay,
in both
perfect.
of the nurses' offices. And,
But about, just in terms of educating kids.
Oh,
'cause
sure.
a lot of
Yeah,
times,
that's a
like, the
good
kids are
point.
freaked out about calling their parents, so they call no one. And
Okay.
then people get intubated in the field and have an anoxic brain injury because people don't want to get in trouble. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that especially for.
Amnesty.
Right. Well, and I think the risk for people legally is incredibly low, but if you're 16, you're really more worried about getting in trouble as immediate familiar consequence, as opposed to this person could die. The people I take care of are 18, but the 19-year-old brain is a whole lot like the 17-year-old brain. And so we think it's not happening here, and it's definitely happening here. And so I think whatever we can do to acknowledge that piece and kind of that step beyond marijuana, that our kids are doing this stuff, whether we know it or not.
yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's great advice. I'll bring that back to the table.
Any
Thanks.
questions from?
Any questions?
I'm Allison Richardson. I love the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Quick question from totally the other end of the spectrum, because it's not as scary, but there is a really rapid rise in e-cigarette use among adolescents, and that happens before tobacco use, so it's kind of the gateway. And I wondered if that's on the radar screen and part of the discussion.
It is very much so. So last year, I can't remember, it was last year or the year before, that was a really big part of our stakeholders meeting with the police and what they were seeing when that was evolving. And it's in the health curriculum at the school, so we kind of try to keep track of what they're discussing, and that's very much something that's brought up under their curriculum. And they're also used for marijuana, smoking, obviously as well. So, yeah, they've been very much on the radar. And some of our panel events we had where the police were there, they passed out examples so parents could see them, a whole touch and feel with a lot of that paraphernalia. So it's been part of the discussion for a couple of years.
Anybody else? Okay, so then certainly let us know what other things you have
Thank
going
you.
on and how we can help, so.
Thanks so much.
Let's have a
Thank you.
look.
Thank you. Okay, so we have. All right, another small item. Oh, how about a disposal works installer permit for Joseph Irvine, JF Irvine, Inc.
Okay, we did check the references. They were fine.
Okay, so they haven't worked in Sherborn before then?
If he has, it's been a long,
Okay.
many years. So we did check, he gave two references, Milford and Hopkinton. We checked both, and they came back very good.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the disposal works installer permit for JF Irvine, Inc.?
So moved.
Second?
Any other discussion?
Just so
Oh.
the board knows, I have worked with Joe before, mostly on soil testing, so whatever job he plans on doing, I'll be working closely with the engineer and Joe to make sure it all moves along smoothly. But I don't have a problem with his license being issued.
Conditional to a pre-construction conference.
And, yes, motion condition to pre-instruction conference. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and we
Can you
have,
sign this one down?
yep. Okay. Let's see, does anyone know any agenda items for the next meeting just yet? I think we may have some come up in the course of the rest of the meeting.
A couple of variance hearings.
Okay.
you.
Let's see. Oh, what are the end of fiscal year 2017 purchases?
Okay, there, I don't know if it also ties in to your discussion number 2 about the supplemental funds approved.
Oh, okay.
It might, but I need some office supplies, some pens and some folders.
Oh,
So
and
I'll be
the phone
ordering-
message, right? Weren't
Yeah,
we getting low
yeah,
on that?
We need,
Okay.
yes, we need those. So I'll be ordering that type of thing, but the main one was a computer or tablet for the agents to use. And I just want to make sure it's okay to purchase up to the approved amount, which was, I think, $1,000.
Right, and we'll probably need to include software in that, so there's the computer
Yep.
itself and then any software. And I met with Ellen the other day, and she mentioned, I was thinking that we had to budget then for the town's IT person in terms of setup time and anything they needed to do, but apparently that is covered elsewhere. So software is really the only thing I could think of. And then the one other item I thought about is there's quite a range of costs for laptops, and when you get away from gaming features, that's when you can reduce the cost, and you're not going to be gaming. So in terms of fancy graphics and speed,
Yeah,
but
right.
I didn't
Processor.
know if we were able to find a less expensive but still good laptop, whether it made sense to try and get a large desktop screen to make it easier for any plans coming in electronically to look at them on screen, or once you're in the office, you'd rather use the paper anyway because it's just easier than trying to, because you see everything at once in a big scale, but,
I would suggest, I looked it up this morning for the board. Pro 3, if you buy a Pro 3, they're less now, $579. It's one of our major office suppliers. And at the same time, I agree with you. As we move into the world of technology, these plans shouldn't be on paper. They should be on large screens. So I would suggest that that be another opportunity that we, one, require all electronic copies, and two, get a screen that's compatible to a tablet that has a type.
Yeah, I use that at work, so I use my Surface Pro, but I have a large
Pro
desktop
3?
monitor. This is great.
That's
Well,
why,
it's
is that one 4 or 3?
it's pretty new. It's like
Maybe it's a
9
4.
months old.
But I'm amazed at how the prices have come down on their first model, the Pro 3. So I thank you, that helps, because I didn't know if they were compatible to
Yeah, they are.
putting them into a large screen or not.
Yeah,
Okay,
and the monitors are relatively inexpensive. And as a
Yeah,
matter of fact,
and
my son could probably research for us. He's good at pricing. He's good at that. So
oh,
I could stick him.
oh, all right. So we were going to ask the IT person, but if the IT person isn't finding lots of
Okay.
options, then maybe we will,
He doesn't really.
okay, so
mind.
maybe your son would like to do that
Yeah.
sooner than,
I just online typed in Microsoft Pro, and
So you want some
I like
kind of
the
tablet
Microsoft Pro.
and then
a large screen
desktop
to go
monitor.
with it.
Okay.
or a two-in-one. I don't think a tablet, but maybe a two-in-one.
And it's,
And then the ability to hook up so that you can look at things easily
that'd be
on a
fine.
large
It
screen.
appears the Pros come with the typeset anyways, so that you don't have to order separately. It's just making sure we have Microsoft products in it, such as Excel and Word.
Office.
Office, yes, to have those two.
The
things.
Office.
Right, and I think the town probably has some,
Yeah,
License
Kevin
agreement.
did,
yeah.
the IT person did say that we have it on my computer and Jean's, and that if it's in the same office, that he could just use the same one. I don't know if you can, but
Okay, all right, all right. So we're up to our appointment with James Murphy to have a discussion on groundwater mounding for Hunting Lane.
Thank you very much. there might have been a little bit of lack of precision in the way in which it was formatted as an agenda item, but the idea was to talk about mounded systems, separation distance from groundwater, and new construction. And it was really in the context of several things that are happening in town. One, the planning board has gone through a study about what it should do about different methods of dealing with development in the town, and that has been at least a theme that they've discussed. This board discussed with advisory the possibility of hiring a consultant to talk about whether or not something could be done in connection with that same subject. For 115 Hunting Lane, we did submit already a variance request that hasn't been scheduled yet for a hearing. But we have been brainstorming this idea with a lot of people, and we have an alternative suggestion that we hope will meld things together. So Vin O'Brien, he's an attorney in Dover who has worked a lot on these type of things, is here to help us describe what we're suggesting as a possible creative solution. We also have Bill Herbert is here, who's the owner of 115 Hunting, and Bert Corey is here from Schofield Brothers, in case there's any specific questions that they can just jump up and hopefully focus the discussion. But it's really a big picture, and I'm going to turn the mic over to Vin.
Good evening. A little bit about myself. I've been practicing law in Dover for 34 years. A good deal of my practice is land use planning. And Dover has similarly experienced similar issues with groundwater and septic design, because they have the same issues that you do with the question of substantial, if not almost the majority of houses on wells. So it's always a concern, groundwater. My initial relationship with the Board of Health was, let's say, adversarial. We had a lot of lawsuits. And then after many of those, we've actually created a very good relationship and realized there may be a better way to approach these things than lawsuits. From your board's perspective, you're in a difficult position. You have an obligation to uphold the Constitution and allow people to use their property, but also you have to protect their health, safety, and welfare of the other inhabitants of the town. So you have a constant balancing act as to sort of what's in the best interest of the town in general, and what's the best interest of this person who wants to use the property in a reasonable way. And I haven't done an exhaustive search of your minutes over the years and your rules and regulations, but from what I have seen, back in the 60s and 70s, there was some sort of general guidelines, and they really weren't based on anything other than some certain general assumptions, not on any specific science. And if I was going in for back surgery, I don't think I'd want my doctor to be using the methodology that he was using in 1975 to perform that surgery today. I might want to have him look at something more appropriate. So over the years, many people from Sherborn have actually called me and we've talked about this generally. And Bill's the first one who actually said, no, let's run it by the board. So the concept, from my perspective, is you have a regulation, and I'm not sure, I don't presume what the board's position on it is, but I know a lot of people in town have communicated with me that there's some concern about whether it's appropriate, whether it's overkill, whether it's enforceable. And my suggestion is don't do what would normally be done, which the two options are, well, three options. One, don't do anything. The other option is do a 40B, and there's nothing wrong with 40Bs. I think they have an absolute place in our society, and I represent a lot of them, but you can't have them everywhere, especially in a town where you're primarily on a private water system, or file suit. And that's again, not a very good option for anyone. It's time-consuming, it's frustrating, and you don't have a working relationship that's beneficial to either side. So what I've actually done in Dover, and we've worked out on a couple of different situations related to drainage in one instance, and an evolution over years and related to septic systems, is to allow a representative from the town, an engineering firm, to be hired by the town that we would pay for to work with our engineers to see if they can come up with the methodology the board can use going forward. And I understand, and, your discussion on minutes is so prescient. One of the biggest issues is not the minutes, it's not the time, it's the cost. and towns and boards don't have money to fund these things. And I know over the last 30 years, I know Sherborn's always routinely brought this topic up, and it never been able to get anywhere, not out of lack of desire or intent or good intentions. It's quite often funds and financing. And I also don't presume to suggest that I know at all what is in the best interest of this town. And I wouldn't suggest that our engineers do either. But I do think that two reasonable engineers, one working on behalf of the town and one working on behalf of ultimately sort of representing the citizen, could theoretically come up with a scientific methodology that works to address your concerns. So I understand in many towns, look at Title V as a starting point, and it is. And for most towns, it's fine. But other towns have certain unique circumstances that need to be addressed. So what are those circumstances and what can be done? What series of testing, whether it's ground modeling, whether it's static head test, whatever it might be, some scientific approach to this above and beyond your typical perk test and deep hole. And I'm sure you're well aware of it, and people who are listening to this may not be, but it is about the most unscientific test in the world. You dig a hole, you look in the hole, you look for water, or you look for evidence of groundwater in the form of stains in the soil, and you watch how fast the water percolates through the soil. And you're doing that in a slit trench. That is okay, but it's not definitive of what really is happening on that site, what the circumstances are, whether there's refusal, what the actual perk rate is, what effect it has in neighboring wells, how far away neighboring wells. But our suggestion is to allow, and I understand the town's been talking about this, and it may go on forever because it's going to involve money. We suggest that we fund this initial approach as a sort of investigatory, cooperative effort, where we would provide funds, you would hire your consultant, I've heard the term firm Horsley Witten thrown about, someone like that, of your choice. They would work with our consultant. They would put together a proposal of tests, a model of some sort that in their collective intelligence, they think would satisfy your concerns. And you can dictate, you can let your consultant know what your concerns are. And I can assume what some of those are, but you may have more. Again, distance to wells, actual material, the actual soils that are being involved, the refusal in the area, the actual size of the lot may have some effect on things, distance to neighbors, distance to wetlands, whatever it may be. But you have two scientists who are working collectively, different interests because they're different representative people they're representing, but their goal is the same, to design a system and maybe an ultimate method that this board can rely upon going forward. So in Dover, they have a regulation that was more restrictive than it is now, but essentially they have a regulation similar to yours where they say you cannot have a system where you hit groundwater within 3 feet. But if you do, you can come before this board in a case-by-case method following this procedure established to the board that we think the system's safe. So it's substantially greater than your typical Title V testing, and it's designed, or the theory would be that these experts design a method that this board can rely upon so that when they look at the application in the form of a variance, it would be, they can say, okay, all right, it passes Title V, so we get a threshold of okay, but that's not enough for us. What do we want? It passes that threshold. We feel comfortable we can grant the variance. And by doing that, you're following the sort of the letter of the law in the Title V, which basically says if they can show that this system is a safe system under Title V, in your instance otherwise under your regulations, and you can grant that variance because otherwise it would be manifestly unjust. Now, in our particular situation, when we ultimately present this lot, it's a 7-acre lot. Conceptually, a 7-acre lot should be a building lot. I mean, just conceptually, it should be. However, you, as a board, I'm assuming, want to go beyond mere concept, but by the same token, it would be unreasonable to say, from a constitutional perspective, that he doesn't have a right to use his property. So what we suggest, or hope you'll consider, is we will fund this initial analysis with your expert. Again, Horsley Witten, I know, has done it in the past for other towns and similar situations. Has represented towns that are very well known and and I think their credentials speak for themselves, and would provide the funding for that. And pending our variance, we would, I know Jim's already filed the variance application, would extend the time on that to allow sufficient time for this methodology to be put together in a reasonably timely fashion that hopefully satisfies your concerns. Now, in the final analysis, if Horsley, Witten, and our guys come up with some idea and some plans and some methodologies and do certain testings, and they make a joint recommendation, it's still your call. But at least it kind of kicks the can down the road a little bit. It doesn't cost the town any money. And from what I understand, it's something that's kind of, pardon my pun, bubbling under the surface here in town, that there's something not necessarily acceptable about the current regulations. So that's our concept. We'll fund it, get your expert, we'll get our expert. They'll put together a proposal of what kind of testing would take place, come back, make that proposal to you, do the testing, see where the chips fall.
Okay.
Just one follow-on comment.
Sure.
Which is that through this whole process, it's been a 2-year process for me, I've always asked, isn't there a third way? Isn't there something between knockdown, drag-out litigation and doing nothing? And I think the town has put an incredible burden on Board of Health, because they've asked you all to be a legislative body in terms of writing rules and to be a judicial body in terms of enforcing them. And it's a lot, and particularly when you have 1 or 2 members rolling off. This is a big, long-term project if you try to rewrite the regulations. What we hopefully will accomplish together is something that is specific, and I think everybody on this board, I know everybody on this board, has a scientific background. All we want to do is follow the science, and the best science is specific science. And so what we envision this is a permit by permit specific thing, looking at all the variables that go into it, whether it's distance to nearest well, whether it's the design of the system, whether it's the soil type between the 2 wells, all the things that are unique to a particular piece of property. Because one thing I've heard over and over again is people want to follow the science. That's what we would like to do. And I've also heard Sherborn is unique, and it is. I think your statistics, only 3% of the towns in Massachusetts have both well water and septic. I mean, well, yeah,
Private,
water and
yeah.
septic. And so we're saying, let's acknowledge the uniqueness of Sherborn, but let's take that uniqueness to the ultimate scientific level of a lot-by-lot analysis that takes all the variables in that are important, and again, ultimately leaves the decision in the board's hands, but with the best scientific knowledge coming into your decision. Thank you.
Yeah, another way to kind of look at it is, if you have a regulation as a board, any board, and someone challenges it, they challenge the regulation, and there's a battle about that, and a judge determines whether the regulation is reasonable or not. So the regulation's fine. Leave it. You don't have to change your regulation. What you would be doing, and the only thing you'd really be doing, is coming up with keep your regulation in place. In 69 and in the 70s, there was always a discussion about changing things. And one of the things, if you go back and look at the minutes, and I'm sure you've seen this over the years, that there is always the right to a variance. There's always a right to a variance. The thing that seems to be missing is, what do you follow? What are your guidelines for a variance? And I'm suggesting you keep your regulation in place, but create guidelines, and they may take, a couple of times to figure it out, but would be sort of your test case that won't cost you anything, to create a guideline that you feel comfortable about as a board, again, representing the general health, safety, and welfare of the community, but also holding up your oath to uphold the Constitution, to not, take people's land unjustly. I mean, clearly, it's interesting. If someone has a house and the system fails, they get a system. They will get a system. I've got a system approved. This house is on stilts in the wetlands right in the bay of Cohasset. The house was there, and it's a very unique system, but DEP found it very unique because there's a lot of houses on stilts. So we're not 100 feet away from the wetlands. We're in the wetlands. So if there's an existing house, I don't think the board has to worry about that extreme condition, but quite often they'll always find a way to make the system work. Why? Because otherwise you're taking away that person's home. You're taking away that person's property. Well, In the same instance, if someone can't use the property, the same situation applies. If they can't use their property reasonably, it is a taking. So again, it's like, I own a car, you can reasonably regulate my use to it. I can't speed, you can tell me where I park, you tell me where I can pass. You can't say I can't use my car. So
What
the
if
same
your
is-
car doesn't pass emissions?
But that's a reasonable regulation.
So
Right.
I would love to just have a minute. I think we've got 90 seconds for the
No
board. One question I have for you, in your years of litigation, what percentage of the time have you represented non-homeowner stakeholders?
How often have I represented
Non-homeowners. So right now you're coming, and I really
Like a
appreciate the
municipality.
cooperation.
I don't represent municipalities.
Right. So again,
That's
I think
right.
it's important to acknowledge that this is a particular lens, and I really appreciate the kind of voicing of collaboration. As the son of a lawyer, the brother of a lawyer, I also appreciate the sort of implicit threat of litigation. And so what I would say is I think,
No, this is not, this is the opposite.
it never is. Of course it's not. It's absolutely not. What I would say is I think we collectively share an interest in doing what's best for the town. I think the concerns that I have is anytime you take somebody's money, they're never giving it to you for free. And so for me, the concern I have is really sort of addressing and acknowledging the implicit, we've had lots of meetings here. This is my third one. Litigation has now come up ninefold more times in this conversation than any prior ones, and it may be that there are two lawyers kind of presenting the conversation. I get it, that's fine. But I think the sort of larger conversation is sort of separate. And so I think the question of revising Sherborn's regulations is a piece of it, considering a particular project is a piece of it. I think the idea that it's manifestly unjust to say, if it's mine, I should be able to do with it what I will. If I had 7 acres of wetland, I may not be able to build that.
That's correct.
And so I think the implicit idea that I have an unfettered right to develop my land is something that you sort of made constitutional twice in that conversation. And I would just pause and say that collectively, the responsibility, as I say to this board, I'll certainly defer to Lisa and Darrell for their own perspectives, is to protect the health of current Sherborn residents and future Sherborn residents for safe systems that protect the health, and that is the scope of our responsibility. The sort of larger constitutional issues of right to access or what the future development of Sherborn look like, I think are a little bit different, but kind of using the best available data to do what we need to do to protect current and future health seems like our primary role. I don't know.
And I don't think it's necessarily appropriate to compare amelioration of a failed system, which is certainly impacting the environment and water in an adverse way, to something that has not yet been built. I mean, they are absolutely different. I understand the
rights,
corollaries, but
property rights, right.
yeah, it is a different situation.
Can I say something again? I mean, this is.
Yeah.
I've cringed several times from this because I think I said specifically that to these two gentlemen that you're exactly right. There's a minimum harm. So repairing a system is not the same as a new system. You're trying to do minimal harm in both cases. And so that's one time I cringed. I cringed every time litigation came up in this because I don't want to get too personal about this, but I will tell you, Bert will confirm, we spent 2 years coming up with, and untold thousands of dollars coming up with for a design for 3 lots on 115 Hunting Lane. My wife asked me the day before we filed, where are we on this? And I said, I think 1 lot is eminently doable. I think that I've been told by very conservative engineers that if there's ever going to be a mountain system in Sherborn, this lot, because of its soil, distance to wells, distance from wetlands, all the other things, should be that lot. But I said the other 2 lots are going to be a fight. And my wife said to me, I don't want to fight with anybody. I don't want to fight with this town. And that day, we dropped the 2 lots. After 2 years, we pulled those lots back, and we're not filing, and I don't think they're appropriate for sure. So if you're hearing litigation, please understand you're not hearing it from me. It's the last thing I want to do. It's business decision you can talk about when you get to that point. We're not anywhere near that point, and so I just want to emphasize, please understand that my perspective is coming here with cooperation of what I think is an exciting plan in a way that is something that is ultimately good for the town, that solves a lot of problems. I'm self-interested, I'll admit that, it's my property.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd like to maximize, so I completely get that, but just please, please, please realize, and both of these guys and Burke will tell you, I have said from the beginning, yeah, if we get to that point, we'll discuss it, but it's not what I want, and it's certainly not what tonight's agenda is to threaten you in any way. It's your decision.
Yeah,
Your mandate is for the health of this town. We all drink from wells. That's your mandate. We want you to do it. And so I ask your forbearance.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that comment.
And I'd like to mention a few things, because now we're running
Yeah.
late, so we're going to have to
One-
kind of
yep.
outline our way through a few topics. So one thing is, you were referencing the 60s and 70s in terms
I just said
of
some-
regulations, but one, Title V was updated in 95.
Right.
This board periodically reviews the regulations that are in place and has come up with reasons why it wasn't varying on the mounding and on the depth to groundwater. So that's been addressed and is periodically reviewed, and we review literature, and other people in town who come and present also do the same. So that does get updated. I just didn't want people who may be listening to think that we're basing it on the 1890s or the 1960s or something else. My understanding even though I don't know Dover's procedures really well, is that, yes, there is some kind of process that's this more detailed review on a site-by-site basis. In terms of, I don't know if there's any way to know what percentage of projects do that, because it sounds like it's just more time and energy for everyone involved to do, and not that I'm against doing customized evaluations, but it's just more effort. So there is some ease of having things that are replicable, which is how a lot of regulations are set up. Not that that means they're perfect, but I was just curious if you have a quick comment on that, and then I have another
Two quick comments.
update on our mounding status here.
Relative to litigation, what I said is, that's how it's normally done. And I told Bill, I don't do litigation anymore, because I deal with boards in a more congenial way, so I don't do that. Yeah, Dover actually has a method that they've created that's evolved. It started years ago when there was litigation challenging them, and it on a case-by-case basis, they eventually came up with a methodology that works for them. It may work for you also. It may not, but they have a methodology that they've created, and essentially it says if you apply for a variant, the bottom line is if you hit groundwater within 3 feet, your system doesn't get approved. However, you can apply for a variance if you meet these criteria. And I have a copy of it if you'd like
We
to
don't
have.
really
But,
have
no,
time
I
for
mean, I'm
that,
just-
but
it's
now,
online too.
at another time we can,
Right.
but just tonight is going to be tough unless we put it off till later. The other thing is, so we just, after a very long process where we selected a consultant last fall and talked to that consultant about what we were going to do, came up with a work plan, went to all the various boards and committees to get them on, get their opinions and vet the issue with them. I'm not sure why it necessarily took so long, but I think it was last week that we got word from advisory that the monies were finally in our bucket, so to speak, and that there is some way that it can carry over, because now we're at the end of the fiscal year, so that there's apparently some arrangement. So we're lined up to do that. I've been trying to reach Scott Horsley for the last couple of weeks just to firm up the paperwork, and just haven't heard back from him. So we're about to embark on this project to look at mounding and the technical scientific aspects behind it in terms of improving what is just standard Title V mounding, which, again, based on the board's past research, doesn't do such a great job when you need it, but for new construction, it's not the same kind of a need as a replacement system and what have you. So we're looking for ways to improve upon mounding design. So we're about to start on that. And so I'm not
That's one of the biggest
exactly sure
challenges.
how this would weave
Yeah,
together
dovetail,
Yeah.
with this.
Would it make sense? to
And
sort
I
of
think it might take a little more discussion and thought, because this is, I did not know this is what we were going to be talking about specifically, so I haven't given that concept any
It's a
thought.
unique
Into,
concept.
do we merge them? Do we do two paths? Do we keep Scott? Do we
Yeah,
find
or like
another?
as
Do
ours,
I don't know.
Yeah.
How we,
And
I guess what
to
I-
your question, in terms of taking money or
Yeah.
whatnot, I mean, obviously, this would be paid as a user fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some way, we would have.
It happens with
obviously-
Concom all the
Yeah.
time. It's very analogous to
It's
having,
analogous to if, in fact, we had come in with a variance request, you would hire a third-party reviewer anyway. So
Right.
it's kind of like, well, skip over the part about just reviewing the car that we built. Can you together, knowing that the cost would be relatively the same if you did it the standard way as opposed to this way, build the car together? That's really what we're trying to seek to do, and we're trying to see whether or not there was any interest in it. And if, in fact, you're already talking to Horsley, it's kind of like you can put an ad to your bid. Okay, our standard thing we want is these four corners, and can you give us another bid for this additional work, which would be site-specific? So you would still have your advisory money for your package, and you would ask them to bid for a site-specific thing, similar to what Vin is suggesting, and see whether or not they would be willing to do it. That's the way in which it seems to me you could get your global as well as your specific, and that's what we're trying to see whether or not we can, move it forward on the particular site, and to have an earlier answer than a longer time waiting for a regulatory process to go all the way through on global and then see. So that's where
Is there a way to include the abutters, sort of outside of a formal variance hearing? Again, given it's a novel workflow, I think the folks most impacted, it would be nice to have them able to participate in that discussion, rather than sort of getting pretty far downstream and saying we've got collaborative engineers. Is there a mechanism we can
Yes,
do to have a
we already,
second
in fact,
conversation?
ordered for the variance, if in fact we weren't that route, we already ordered the certified abutters list. I just sent it to Ellen yesterday, so it exists. There's probably only 10 or less for this
because
site.
it's a
So I guess is there a mechanism outside of a formal variance hearing for us to have a shared conversation with the abutters and with you to kind of flesh out what this looks like as we have more information about the sort of
yeah, I'm sure we could
process.
set something up. It is going to be time-consuming, and I don't know that it would follow the 45-day sort of period of a normal, just because it's very different, right? It's nothing like anything we have done before as a variance, since we've had no variances for new construction, and this would be. So,
And we
but
understand.
I would assume we could structure something.
Yeah, and I think we can maybe, figure out what this looks like in terms of process and structure. Personally, I'm not crazy about the idea of having to do case-specific research. It takes a lot of our time as well, and I think it'd be great to have the research dovetail maybe into setting something up that's more uniform and consistent, that there could be a mechanism that's not just for this particular property, but going forward, that we could consider, as long as it's supportable by science and protecting public health and the environment and the water supply.
Right, and maybe there's some other help to get regarding that, like how to institutionalize something.
I mean, conceptually,
make procedures, but-
if Paul Sonia designs something and Bert reviews it, he's going to find issues with it. Nothing. One engineer gets on
Yeah.
another. Bert designs it, and Paul looks at it, he says something else. If they work together, and I agree with you, I think ultimately your goal would be to have a reasonable, reliable mechanism for everybody. And that's kind of what, it took Dover a while to get there, but they do. System might not work for you, but I think that's, should be your goal, that you have your regulation in place, you have the opportunity to get a variance, but you are comfortable that when that variance is granted, that you're protected, you've done your job.
Okay, so since we're way past our next one and coming up quick on then the one that'd be after that, do we want to add this to the next meeting?
I think
How
that
does-
makes sense,
Yes.
yeah.
You guys get a chance to review it, and
Yeah, next meeting, try to figure that out, and we'll have to think about whether we need more information from you. I don't know if you're going ahead with the variance hearing at the next one and how we address.
It's not writ-
We probably have to talk to Ellen about, the way in which we have to deal with the conservation, because we filed an ANRAD with conservation, so we have to probably coordinate something with Ellen on that before she'll be willing to send out any notices to the butters, but we're prepared, if in fact this gets on the agenda, to send notices to those same abutters saying that this topic is going to be discussed, and that one of the things being proposed is to have a particular eyeball on 115 hunting, and they might want to have, they might want to hear what the board's talking about, and we don't have any problem with that at all. So I'll talk to Alan separately about the variance, whether or not it's time for that,
or with Allery.
or with Allery,
Yeah.
right, just to make sure
I've got to
Allery
hear
and
from
Ellen are happy
Conservation.
on that part. And then, but I think if you put this concept on the next agenda, we'll also nonetheless send out notice to the certified abutters list, telling them that it's on it, and inviting them to either call any of us or anybody else who you want them to call.
And I know my comments kind of came out as there was some conflict, and I just want to make one thing clear here, which is that I talked to a lot of people before I started this process, and both of these gentlemen told me up front, I will not litigate against the town of Sherborn, and that was one of the variables. So they are absolutely correct. They didn't, however it might have gotten a little bit off the rails, or seemed to have, has been their stance all the way along, that they have no money in litigation because they're not going to participate in it. They made that clear.
Okay,
So much.
thank you for taking the time.
thank you.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Okay.
Okay.
Much appreciated.
Okay. So we have a variance hearing, continuation for 14 Stony Brook for a septic replacement. And are there any abutters? Hello.
Hi again. You know what, should I just move?
Sure.
I'm feeling like you have to keep.
Identity theft right there.
This is 14 Stony Brook Road. This is located off 27, just past Forest and Wilman. Here, going in the direction of Medfield. This is an existing 5-bedroom, single-family home. The existing septic system is located in the backyard here. Yeah, sorry, it's trenches, it is in failure. It's in the groundwater. The on-site well is in the front yard. It's about 50 feet from the house, the front of the garage. The neighboring well is at 16 Stony Brook. It's actually down here. And then, yeah, it's not up front. Then this one's for 10 Stony Brook. It's up here, uphill. This one's uphill as well. There's a wetland system in the back with associated buffers. We went through conservation. We have approval from them.
Okay.
We decided to test in this area, obviously, to try to stay out of the well buffers, which we did. We were able to get a
The
system.
wetlands.
And,
Yeah, right.
we're out of the wetland buffer.
It's a tight little
Yeah, it's
Right.
tough
swath.
You had these two
Underneath all.
pieces, but then you had
area.
property
Right.
boundary setbacks, so.
Exactly. So, this homeowner had a real interest in maintaining the view out here, so we decided to go with a fast, with a geoflow system.
Yeah, that's what I had.
Yeah, so there's no mound at all. But with that comes variances from both the local and state regulations, which I can go over if you'd like.
So what's the distance to?
To groundwater, this one's
Yeah.
2 feet.
2 feet?
Yeah, so,
What kind of, is it sandy or what kind of?
this is a, yeah, down below it is, but right here it's a sandy loam BW, then it goes into, it's a loamy sand, but it just has groundwater at 26 inches, 24 inches, so it's pretty shallow, yeah.
Right.
Correlates about with the wetland.
And no mounding whatsoever proposed?
No. So, well, slight, I think it's like 6 inches or something, but it'll be graded off.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the kind of common thing we see here, I'd say, is very constrained sites for a whole host of reasons, and so,
So what's the distance to the wetlands?
Oh, right here, it's, where's,
Is that the 50-foot buffer, or?
yeah, 65 feet versus, yeah, that's a 50.
That's a 50-foot.
so it's
So-
within this, which you have to get special permission
Right.
from.
Yeah, so I think, I can't remember if it was a notice of intent or a request.
I think so.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was, yeah. So this process has been going on.
And are there any surface expressions of water anywhere on the property? I mean,
Oh, like
on-
breakout, you mean?
Yeah, seeps or
I
anything?
don't think I saw anything like that, no. We were out there in February, so I didn't see anything then.
Yeah, I just, in this, and
I
have you
think
been
they
there
had-
recently, or?
No, I have not. I think they did a Title V inspection and it failed. They assumed the trenches are in the groundwater, so. Is it a failure where you have breaking out? I don't think so.
Okay.
And Mark, do you have any, sorry,
That's okay. They're right here.
particular
I was
comments?
just letting you know where we are.
So-
No, based on the soil evaluation done by Eric and myself, and based on the site itself, and the type system they're using, it meets code. So I don't see any problems with the request for waivers. A lot of the geoflow information's built into the approval letter from DEP when they approve the special types of systems, what they call them is innovative alternative
Right.
technologies. And I've reviewed the plan and find it within reasonable conditions for approval.
Okay, just because I figured I
Including the
might
waivers.
abbreviate some of my
Yeah.
usual comments
Yeah.
in the interest
That
of
sounds
time,
good.
and
That
there are
sounds
no
good.
abutters, so.
Yeah.
Any questions for,
Nope, I read
Eric
about
has-
geoflow today at lunch.
Oh,
I think I got a solid 70% of it.
Okay.
hey, that's great.
Water system.
So, okay, so we'll go through them and vote one by one. We find that can
Okay.
move it along quicker than, and we've discussed the basics, and so onward more. All right, so first variance is for a bed design. Normally, we require trenches, but bed design is what goes with this particular.
Yes, geoflow
IA
is
technology.
designed together. They can loop it around, but trees and so forth, but they decided to put it in the area where they can fit it with the bed design. I don't see an issue with that based on the site constraints.
Okay, do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 1.2?
So moved.
Second?
Any other comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do you want to just briefly
Yeah,
introduce it?
And from section 8.01, to allow the bottom of the soil absorption system to be installed 4 feet above seasonal high groundwater versus 5 feet. To limit site disturbance an additional 2 feet with the use of a geoflow. This is allowed by DEP. The FAST system has an advanced treatment to compensate for that variance.
And I'll just note that anytime we talk about advanced treatment, it's only for certain parameters, not for everything that may be in the water, but that is just the way it's set up, and it is this additional 2 feet reduction in distance is permitted by the state. And it is a replacement system, so that would be considerate. So do we have a motion to grant a variance to 8.01?
So moved.
Second.
Any other comments,
And
questions?
Madam Chair, you
Yes.
meant that's within the effluent, correct? When you said
Yes,
it's
within the
water.
effluent, yes.
Just for the record. I know that's what you meant. I understand
thank
where you're
you.
going with it too, but thank you, and I agree with
I'm
you.
abbreviating a bit much,
Thank you.
perhaps. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And then the next one, 8.01, or should that be
8.0.
Yeah, he
this
did,
one again?
he did it
Oh, you-
to allow
Look it up,
4
yeah.
feet, and then you're going the additional 2 feet.
Okay,
So to allow the bottom of the SAS to be installed 2 feet above seasonal high groundwater versus 4 feet, to reduce site disturbance and tree clearing. So if we were to mound it up, we'd be down in the wetland area there. The use of a geoflow system allows the separation of groundwater to be reduced to 2 feet per DEP's remedial use approval, last revised March 20th, 2015. DEP approval is not required. There's no additional flow above the existing 5 bedrooms. It's staying at 5 bedrooms. Advanced treatment is proposed, which is this. which is a geoflow fast. And the garbage grinder is prohibited.
Okay.
So
And
it
is
meets
this
all.
one of the systems that includes a filter as part of it, or?
No.
No,
Okay.
the fast system is like a gigantic treatment plant. Just so the board knows, if you wish, you can go to the first variance from Title V, it's the same request. It's just they need to ask that from Title V as well. If you want to go in order, that's fine too.
Yeah. So,
It's the local upgrade approval. It's up to the board. I didn't mean to throw you off, but
Just
it's,
do the local first.
okay.
so really, we don't need to vote this one because we have essentially already granted variance, haven't we?
Which
For that
one?
section?
Well, you
We went to 4 feet.
You only went to 4 feet. He could just combine it and just ask for it once and go
Right.
2 feet versus, go 2
Yeah, I
feet
actually-
versus 5
I
feet.
interpret
I
it
think,
two.
I think
Yeah,
of
you
it
know-
combined, but.
I thought 2 did go 4 and then 2 within the same paragraph, but, okay, so for the, to 2 feet, then do we have a motion to grant a variance, again, to 8.01, but for a different reason?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then the next one is really the corollary to the other one, because,
To allow the SAS to be in an area with less than 5 feet of natural grade above high groundwater. We had redox at 24 inches, 26 inches, and 42 inches. So the site, the area tested, we didn't have groundwater deeper than 5 feet.
and this would be,
And
the way
approve-
we've typically looked at something that would be manifestly unjust is,
Yes.
it's an existing use, it was approved that somebody could live there in the past under different sets of regulations, and to penalize them for things that were okay to have been done in the past, this, to me, would be manifestly unjust
Right.
versus,
Right, a
Agreed.
future, right,
So-
prospect.
in any case, so that's how we get to this point. All right, do we have a motion to grant a variance to 8.02?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, last one.
Section 10.2, to allow the soil absorption system to be located 65 feet versus the Board of Health regulations is 125 to a wetland. The area between the nearest wetland flag has a slope of about 6%, and it's heavily wooded, so it would take a long time to.
And frankly, here, if
very
you
thick.
were 125 feet away, you would
You'd be up-
overlap with the
yes,
wells.
you'd
and
also
be
have
in the well buffers.
Not a single inch left to do anything on, so,
Yeah.
and also it's gotten the approval of Conservation
Right.
Commission.
Yes.
And they're really the wetlands experts in this case. Not that we're not important to protecting qualities real wet. Any other questions? Do we have
No.
a motion to grant a variance to section 10.2?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and this requires local upgrade approvals to Title V. So, first one is akin to 8.01, but it's state level, section 15.4051H. And do we have a motion to grant a variance to that section?
So moved.
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and I'll let you explain the last one.
Okay, this is section 15.4051J, to allow reduction in the requirement of 12-inch separation between the inlet and outlet tees due to the high groundwater being at 24 inches. If you put the tank in the ground, the inlet and the outlet here is within the high groundwater elevation, so you have to request a variance from that. The pipes are going to be sealed with boots and watertight. That's the variance we're requesting. There's going to be sealed pipes and watertight tank, which is common in new construction of a fast
So
tank.
it keeps groundwater from going in and
Right.
disrupting the performance, overloading the system volume-wise, and it keeps stuff from
Coming
gushing
out.
into the
Right.
ground.
Yeah.
No gushing.
Yeah.
Right.
So, do we have a motion to grant a variance to 15.4051J?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so, close the hearing, and are the plans ready for approval?
Conditional to the O&M agreement for the use of the IA innovative alternative technology, garbage grinder, and the IA technology, both as deed recordings as well. So that's it, but it is ready for approval conditional to those three items.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the plans subject to the conditions identified?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Local upgrade approval.
Hopefully this will be quick. I have to-
Darrell,
Yeah.
if I may step out for 10 minutes, I received some plans today, I just have to,
Oh, all right.
just a quick check.
I'm good. I read it, I underlined stuff.
This
so I'll-
face is not picking up.
You can cherish it always.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Darrell, that doesn't pick you up when you're talking to the side of it.
Oh, interesting. Really, it has to be straight on. Oh, okay. Okay. So now we have an appointment to review camp permit and variances for Sweet Meadow Farm. Anybody here from Sweet Meadow? It's going to be very hard to review those. But we can be educated on the status because we did receive some new and interesting information from the building inspector this week, so. Okay, take it away.
Good evening. I'm not Mark Oram. I'm Ethan Mascoop, and pleasure to meet the new board members. Now, simply, let me just write down the list of items that I reviewed, but, before I do that, just to update the board, I've been out to the camp a number of times. Camp is open with the provisional permit that's been authorized. Things are going well. They're fortunately, the camp is relatively low volume last week and this week because it's the private schools that are closed, but the public schools are still open. So there's not that many campers. So it's a good opportunity for them to work out all their various things that occur during camp season. But they've been very cooperative and and been working very closely with them on all those fine-tuning issues. So I don't have anything in particular that's a problem or out of compliance with the regs. Now, the issue for variances and permits and the like, one is we're waiting to get a report from the fire department. I know they've been out there. I'm looking at Ellen. Have you received a report yet from them?
No,
Yes, I have not, no.
I did not, but I did get was it your email? Or your email that you talked to the building inspector?
And
I-
also,
I did speak, John Dowse did come in and visit me in the town hall on behalf of the fire department. And he told me that they have done their inspection, but they had questions with the use of one of the buildings, that the second floor was being used for assembly, a meeting room or something, and they were not aware that it was originally permitted for that use. If they were talking with the building inspector about it and relying on his decision. If he decided that they needed more work, then the fire department would require a lot more fire suppression
Like sprinklers or something.
in that building before they would approve it.
so that's a good segue as well to the building inspector. I spoke with Chris, the new building inspector. In fact, I was talking to him before coming up here. I had a half an hour to speak with him. And he also sent me an email that's was written at 7:25 this evening, so it's hot off the press. So let me give this to everyone. pass this down. The bottom line is, the building inspector has been out there. He supports the use of it, the use of the buildings for assembly, but he's waiting to get an architect's report that the main building, the building that's used for the camp assembly programs and food and the like, that it would meet the various, that would meet the codes. Also, he's restricting the occupancy of the building to 49 or fewer, so not to exceed 49 individuals at any time. And that would pretty much meet the camp requirements. If it were more than 49, then there are various codes that would kick into effect, such as fire, additional fire suppression, structural support. That's not my area of expertise, but it's the building area, but it would require more structural improvements than are necessary for 49 or fewer individuals. So he's waiting for that. He's giving them about 30 days to complete the reports and the engineer's filings and the reviews. But he does, as he says in the bottom, the end of it, he says, in general, I can support the issuance of the camp permit pending the applications to correct these issues that he describes above.
Okay, does that mean that they, per the building inspector, they cannot have anyone go into that space until this work is done?
No, that's not what he's saying. He's not issuing a cease and desist on that building. He's just saying he wants to have the paperwork and the reviews all in place. So
He
he's
said moving towards compliance.
Correct.
So,
correct.
Okay, but I guess he has some sense that it's safe?
Yes, he feels that it is,
Okay.
reviewing the plans. However, the part of the issue is, and again, it's not, this is what he reports to me, that the buildings were never approved for the purposes that they're used for now. And so it wasn't constructed for that, it wasn't approved for it, it wasn't reviewed for it. And he wants to make sure that it at least meets those minimum requirements. He needs to have an architect or an engineer to review the plans in the building before he issues the occupancy permit. So that's where,
Okay, does that mean it has to go before ZBA at some point?
I didn't ask, I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know. I don't believe so. I do not believe so, but I think it was, if it's more than 50, then I think it does. I think that's, I'd have to ask him.
okay. And are the camp operators aware of the various findings and things that they need to be doing in the short term?
I asked him, he said he's been working very closely with them, and they're cooperating.
Okay.
So do they need a certificate of occupancy permit issued by the building department
Yes.
prior to them? I mean, because they already have campers, so.
The code requires, yes, the code does require a building department permit, occupancy permit.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're operating without an occupancy permit?
They've been operating without it for a number of years, and this is the first that it's become an issue.
And
We
I
have a new
did,
building inspector.
I did go to, I don't remember if it was the building inspector, but I think it was the ZBA to ask in the past, before we did the first round of permitting, to say, what do we need to know from you before we give a permit? Like, has this been through all the gates? Because it doesn't have the same kind of checkoff as septic systems have procedurally, and I was informed that we could just proceed. So
So it doesn't interfere necessarily with us approving?
I'm not sure that I'm, in light of this, comfortable with that any longer, but,
Well, in my email I sent you, I took out I printed the relative portions of the code, and under section 451, it describes the requirement of certificate of occupancy, and there it is. It says here, it shall be issued by the local building inspector. And apparently we have to have that in hand before we issue the permit.
So that contradicts
Yeah.
what you were told.
But I think the issue here is they've been operating for a while, for a number of years. They're operating now. The building inspector feels that they will comply. And he doesn't see anything there, at least from my discussion with him, that's egregious. It's more here filling out and.
Administrative.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what about the fact in his last sentence in his email to you? It says, "In general, I can support the issuance of their camp permit pending the applications to correct these issues."
Right.
So does that mean, do we have an obligation or someone to just double check that they're at least, moving forward with, moving forward towards compliance, or?
Well, I'm kind of wondering whether we do another temporary,
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, like,
and then,
Well, the other
but,
thing.
but maybe we need more conditions that if it isn't, we
The
can't
issues-
keep doing temporary permits.
it's sort of balancing between saying, we want to serve the families and the campers and kind of say, your summer plans being awry for something that we're enforcing or approaching differently than we have in the past. Like, it's sort of want to find the balance
Right.
where,
Well, there's an additional twist to this. Okay, I included that in my email as well. The section 650, there's a provision in the code that actually allows the camp to operate without a permit if the Board of Health permitted it the year prior. And under these conditions, the camp is under the same ownership and directorship, which it is. The camp has had a satisfactory inspection report the prior camping season, which eventually they did.
so if you sort of
The
had
board-
3 unsatisfactory and 1 satisfactory, that hits A.
The Board of Health determines, based upon the record of the camp, that there is no evident risk to the health and safety of the campers. So right now, I don't see any evident risk. And finally, the camp is subsequently inspected by the Board of Health within the camping season, which it is and will be. So in essence, you don't even have to issue a permit, and they can operate according to that section of the code.
Okay.
So when do you grant a satisfactory inspection report?
I would not grant a final report until I receive the fire department and the building inspectors, as well as the
Okay.
work I have to complete as well.
So I think wrapping that in somehow into our approval and making sure that, unfortunately, they're not here, but that they understand that they need to take these steps to satisfy the occupancy permit and these other things, so that eventually, this season, you can give them a satisfactory inspection,
Because
or they will
otherwise they
not
can
be
operate
operating
next
next season. I mean, they just need to know that
Exactly.
that's the line in the sand, so.
Exactly.
And
I would concur.
did they comply with the requirement that there be notification to the parents of the campers who are there now about their interim status?
I had notified her, Patty, and I don't know if she followed through. I don't have any, I don't know,
No data one way or the other.
yeah.
Okay, so.
And there was only 6 campers this week.
Right, so it would be nice to soon, your next visit, check on that, whether it's postings on the walls around there or something, copy of a letter, whatever you think
Yes.
suitable. I would like to get that because that was our condition for this period so far, so, okay.
The other sections, what I would recommend for variances are 2. The hand washing was a mistake in my original email.
Oh.
It was an oversight on my part. They have hand washing, but here's the 2 areas. One is potable water.
Right.
If you read the code carefully, it requires a public water supply of some sort that's approved by DEP or the local town or the local government. Either way, it does not include bottled water.
Right.
So they have been using bottled water as Poland Springs, straight from Framingham is where they bottle it, not in Poland Springs. And in any event,
So then it's public water,
it's not a public water
in a
supply.
sense? Oh, no?
No,
Oh,
it's a bottling water plant.
it's not bottling municipal water, it's bottling,
Well, it's bottling.
Well
different-
water?
Really, that's
If
another
it's going
discussion.
under Poland Spring, it cannot be from a tap. It has to be spring
Yeah,
sourced.
well, some of it is.
For
That, like, Poland Spring is
Spring.
the brand name.
Some of it, well, that's a whole
No,
nother
but
discussion.
They definitely don't use like filtration and reverse osmosis filtered water. They're not supposed to. That's what they're label says.
Most of their springs are in Maine.
We
Right.
could-
We do work
We
with
can
them.
talk about that later.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. They're required to have a public water supply. Wells, municipal system, that kind of thing. They're bringing in water from bottled water. And that's not a sustainable source of water for a camp, according to the code. So you'd have to grant them a variance to continue using bottled water, the way I read the
Okay.
code. And I checked with the state, and that's a requirement.
So when you looked to see their supply of bottled water, is it, in your estimation, ample to keep
Currently, it
campers
appears to be, yeah.
sated?
Yeah.
And, yeah,
As
I mean,
long
it's
as-
really about the health, it's,
Right,
you know,
right.
versus, okay.
And they have hand washing stations, they have, the portable potties and that type of thing. And they meet the minimum requirements. It's just that by code, they're supposed to have a permanent source of water.
Okay. So
And
send
an
you one-
approved permanent
oh,
source.
yeah,
And they don't. There's no well, they have a well on the farm, but it's not approved by the town. And it's not for drinking purposes, not for potable
It's
purposes.
irrigation,
Right, but it's not approved for human consumption.
right.
So,
And so if a variance were granted, that would then be compatible with sort of successful inspection this summer. If a
Right.
variance weren't applied for and weren't granted, then they would continue under last year's kind of that provision, but would not have the same thing coming out of this year.
and then the other one is sewage disposal. They're supposed to have a septic system or a municipal system, and they don't. They use porta potties. And that's not a sustainable, permanent solution.
So if they applied for variances for those two issues and those were granted, we'd be all set.
Right. And they've been using the portable potties, or whatever they're called. There's a brand name for the ones they're using, and I'm calling porta potties. They're nice, they're air conditioned, yeah, for a summer camp, air conditioned porta potties. It's better than anyone's septic system. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't meet code. But the Board of Health does have the authority to grant a variance, and that's what they used last year. And there's adequate number of bathrooms for the number of campers and staff.
Okay.
But they need
So then on to the list of things, as you mentioned, that they need to know, besides getting acceptable, satisfactory compliance this year, is also they need to apply for variances to get ready for next year.
So I guess it's a question of, do we issue an extension of the provisional permit, or do we kind of put them under that 430.650 exemption? What are your thoughts, Ethan?
I think since you already started down the provisional permit route, you may as well
Continue?
continue.
Yeah, I
You
think
know, it makes sense to me.
I would rather do that, and then I think what we're using this for is temporarily for these, but this will be the last year they need to formally apply for those. 430,300 and 430,360.
So if we're going to do an extension of the provisional permit, what's the time frame? It looks like the building inspector was 30 days.
I would say 30 days.
30 days from, is that from, he said from June 15th.
Is that what you said?
It says he inspected it on June 15th.
Right, so
So I
July
would do
15th.
30 days from that date, because that's what he was
And so our
referencing.
next Board of Health is July 17th,
July 19th.
19.
July 19th. I would imagine we'd want to extend it through the Board of Health
Yeah,
meeting
that's
just
fine.
for the,
Okay. Someone want to make a motion?
So extend it to
July 24th.
July 19th.
through the 24th?
No,
But I mean, do we have to do any, I just worry that, like, we sort of extended this one to make sure, right? Like, this one didn't expire today, it expires in a couple of days in case we had issues that came out of this meeting that they had time to adjudicate without immediately being non-permitted. Do you want to apply a similar cushion to kind of say the following Monday or something else in case there's some minor issue?
except that they didn't even come to this meeting, so, I don't know, I kind of feel like we've been very,
But I think the outcome, like, they could continue to operate, like, if it expires, they can continue to operate and nothing else happens. I think for me, it's a little bit the sort of good faith of, like, you may not be doing what we perceive to be reasonable, but we'll keep trying to do what we perceive to be reasonable.
And they've also operated that way last year.
Right.
And this is more, as the building inspector's trying to clean up their paperwork, we're trying to clean up our paperwork as well, and making sure that the variances and everything are in order, the way I see it. And they are complying now. I mean, they're doing everything plus more that we have been asking before the camp opened and as the camp has been open for the past 2 weeks. They've been very cooperative.
Okay. And Ellen, were you going to?
No.
So are we going to wrap in, though, that, that
I think this
ultimately
is-
that the building, that they have to demonstrate that they've at least put in applications for that change in use for the building to business?
I would recommend that, very much so.
I think we need to add that to the provisional permit, that
I mean, it's the fire department and the building, and I think the fire department's so contingent upon what the
The
building
building,
department.
right.
Yeah, it's a,
interwoven.
yeah, exactly.
Do you want to take a stab at a motion?
So is the
Ellen
mo-
may have captured some of the
Yeah,
things you've been
is the
saying. but-
motion
Yeah, I
to,
put that the demonstrated that they've begun the process to comply with the building department requirements.
within, what's the date, though, that they have to
Oh.
demonstrate that?
Yeah, that I don't, because you haven't,
I mean, he said within 30
Fine.
days
Yeah,
of his
so it
inspection,
should be-
which is July 15th, which doesn't,
So
isn't-
by our next meeting, we
Yeah.
should have that answer.
they must demonstrate by July 19th.
yeah, I think that's
I think
fair.
that's reasonable, so that we could have, if there's any issues, I can talk with the building inspector, fire department, and we could figure out what's going on.
Okay, I think that's fair.
Okay. And is there
And then,
another-
And I would like
do we
to,
have to vote on the variances
They haven't
again,
applied
or-
for the variance.
Yeah.
Like, they need to apply for the variance before we can vote on it. And so I think if we can communicate to them that they'll be, like, these need to be applied for variances, or they won't get a successful inspection.
I'd also like to add to this discussion, if I may, that, let's say through the building department or during the course of doing inspections, there's something that's egregious or life-threatening. Obviously, I have the power to shut them down immediately,
Right.
and I don't have to wait for a board meeting
Right.
to do so,
Okay.
so.
Belt and suspenders.
What's that?
Belt and suspenders. so
Yes,
that-
yes.
yeah.
So, I think that, and I'm in close contact with the building inspector.
Well, so then, in a sense, I think keeping the date then, the date of our meeting, that gives them 4 extra days to comply, which I think is fair.
I think that sounds fine, I've got no objections.
Okay,
All right.
so,
So the motion is to
to-
grant, to extend their temporary permit until,
July 19th. And pending that they demonstrate that they have provided application for to satisfy the building inspection requirement for change in use
and fire department I'd throw in there too.
At fire department,
and fire department.
and to apply for variances.
And to apply for variances
For potable water use and for sewage disposal. Do I have a motion?
so moved.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
We done?
Yes, anything else we need to know on that front?
I think it's pretty much, fortunately, it's running very smoothly.
Okay,
It
good.
is, yeah.
I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, as I said before, they've been very cooperative.
Okay. All right, so then confirmation of that notice, because I think that was really the only thing that we had required last time associated
Double checking.
with the temporary permit. Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Nice meeting the rest of the board.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot that you haven't met. It seems like they've been here forever already. They've dived right in, so,
No comment.
Okay.
in a good way. Really. Okay. So, now we have our 8:50 appointment, a little late, sorry, for Whitney Farms. There's a request for a building application. Approval, and Mark, are you You have that information, and is someone from Whitney Farms here?
They're the ones I thought
Bob
they were going
Gargano.
to present, but I do have.
I am Bob Gargano,
Oh, hi, Bob. Haven't seen you in a while.
the acting project manager. You see the project started. So, thank you for at least reviewing the memorandum that I had sent out. I think you have a little bit of a unique situation with the old farmhouse. I'm sure everybody's familiar with it, or with the Whitney Farm project. Permit application I applied for, the renovation permit, the existing structure, which was serviced by a well, which is still there. Oh, sorry.
The farmhouse in respect to the locust map.
Whitney Street, the existing farmhouse, and what the town has allowed us to do, I don't know if anybody, it's on the flight path for anybody's work travel, we were allowed to do exterior renovations, through historical commission. So the exterior of the house looks great. What we'd like to do is proceed with the interior renovations. When I contacted Mark just to see what the process was, he says we're still awaiting approval. Wells, it's an existing structure. They had a well. We're not going to be using that same well just because we chose not to, but we asked for a little bit of wiggle room over here because of the extent of interior renovations in an 1800s built house and the amount of time it's going to take. We are fully willing to proceed at our own risk to get started on these interiorations. And the only reason we are drilling 2 new bedrock wells, not that we need them, but for marketing purposes, because they're 2 affordable units, just to be consistent with the rest of the project. We're hoping on a little bit of leeway to allow us to in the interior renovations because of the unique type of work involved.
And so before, although it seems, is the existing well
Is
a
it
valid
decommissioned,
well?
or?
And
Has it been abandoned properly? Bob, you told me it's under the road.
Never applied for it to decommission it. We are using it as construction water for, if we need water for the mason to mix concrete or
Spraying of
that
like
type of
dust and,
Yeah, intermediate stuff with, we run it off of a generator, for the pump.
So it's still active then?
so it's functioning?
Yes.
Because we had a discussion at one time, you said it was under the road, but
Yes, it's actually located almost in the travel lane of Colonel Isaac Way, which that portion of the road will not be developed towards the end of the, the end of the end of the project. And another issue we run up against is the availability of northeast wells. Everybody's just busy, and it's going to take us probably 7 or 8 months to get going on the interior renovations. And that's even if we start now, it's going to put us into December. And again, the type of carpentry crews we need to do this type of very task-specific work inside, we feel it creates a little bit of a burden on us if we wait too much longer. And I was with the owners today from Rising Tide Development and Whitney Farm. We'll gladly proceed at our own risk, but we'd really like to get started, again, because of the type of repairs that we have in there.
And there are 2 units in that building?
Yes.
So is that part of the issue, is,
It was always
the
2
issue would be
units.
making sure that prior to occupancy, that they have potable water. Typically, a building won't be allowed to be constructed without proof
Without-
of potable water.
except there is an
This is an
existing well?
existing.
So to me, that's sort of the
We've seen
unusual
those,
aspect of
yeah.
this, is that in a way, if
It's
we
already-
didn't know that you had any plans for wells, they have a well. Is
Yes.
that kind of,
But the discussion came, I didn't realize it wasn't abandoned already. I thought you had no potable water,
oh,
so.
okay.
No, we have it, but we're not going to.
It's not your intent to use it.
But
for the
but that's a
purposes
choice, but
Yes.
it exists and it's
Yes.
functioning.
Yes, and it's.
So I think that's,
The prior two units that were there, and we're not adding any units, we're just turning those 2 units.
right,
into
renovating
affordable-
them, yeah.
Into affordable units.
Is
We
the
feel
wa-
time is of the essence to it. Again, as Mark said, it's kind of a unique situation,
Yeah.
that's why we requested
The water's never been tested and so forth and so on, but is the
But
water...
it was existing, right? I mean, someone used it at some
Farmhouse.
point in time,
Yep,
right?
no, that's true.
So, I
Is
mean,
it still in the house? No, or is it detached from the
It's
house?
not new construction,
Yeah, I
it's a
don't-
No,
renovation.
it's yes, renovation,
But the
so,
well, is it still
this
attached
doesn't
to the
sound
house?
Yeah, I'm thinking not.
no, we had to pull the.
Because you just said you use a generator to get the water out, so.
We use a generator, yeah.
So it's
just for the,
detached, which
for the
is
pump, so
actually-
you don't have power up.
in
So
my
you took
view,
the pump
Yeah,
out.
exactly. It's a better situation because the controls there, that as you renovate, I don't have a problem with this, but you would need to have potable water for them, and that means you'd have to make a choice on this well or a new well.
At that time, when we're ready to do that, we'll probably be okay, but that's probably, 3 or 4
Okay.
months down the road, because we can't even start any mechanical roughs in there until we, get a handle on the structural, the structural components of of inside the house and the interior renovations.
What I would suggest, based on the information now that I know, is that because the well has been detached, that prior to occupancy, but allow these to be approved for building purposes, for renovation, to make sure there is potable water
Oh,
at
yeah.
that time.
Okay,
Agreed.
so to
Some
retest,
type.
and
We're
then
fine with that, yeah.
if you choose to drill a new well, or test that well, or whatever.
Oh, and that'll be fine, and at some point, yes, we will be asking, going through to decommission.
Okay, so your intent is to drill new wells.
Yeah.
That's even better.
You have approved those permit applications probably a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Just waiting on North.
I didn't know if you were planning to go back to this old well, so that's good to know, too. Okay, good.
Oh, that sounds-
So,
Not a problem. Just need
so
the
this is
board.
so you can sign off on the
Yes.
So this isn't a variance.
tracking sheet?
No waivers.
This is
No
a,
waivers.
Guidance.
This is easy.
would
Yes,
a
this is
vote
easy
of
one.
our evaluation be helpful, or did we just really find out that it's kind of
Yeah,
standard?
you just agreed that Mark
Yeah.
can sign off.
Okay.
That's fine. I have them here, so.
Good night.
And somewhere, it will be noted, because it was conditional to proof of potable water supply prior to
Everything-
occupancy,
yeah,
so
everything
that
follows
would
the
be a little
normal-
different, yeah.
Normal protocol for.
And there's one other condition that we had addressed by Pam Merrow from the state DEP, and you're fine, you're within it. Once 10 facilities are occupied, then he's gonna have to tie the septic system up to the water, the sewer lines that are there. Right now, he's using a tight tank, modified tight tank, but you're okay, because you only have one occupant in
We
there,
only have one
correct?
occupancy, and actually, we met with DEP today on site. You included that memorandum.
Yes, I saw that.
Just to start the soil absorption system, which is different. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but.
That's-
that,
we're curious.
We had a second pre-construction meeting, 'cause we have a new site contractor out there. But that's scheduled to start now. We got the green light from
Good.
DEP. And Carlos Quintal was there for the wastewater treatment plant, and Mark Bode from Meridian for the soil absorption system. So that's moving forward.
If you could have the licensed installer call us, just so I know who it is. The person that's going to install it.
Pamela wanted the contact list for all of that, to be included in.
Beautiful. That's
That was
fine.
just, this afternoon, I haven't gotten back to
It
my
falls,
other
all of it
office.
falls under the state, but it's nice to oversee it to some degree.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
And they just got signed, just so you know.
Okay,
Yep.
concluded now. I see Ben Stevens, so shall we take, is that for Green Lane?
Yeah,
Lot 3
and
Green Lane?
It's, those I asked for that.
Unless you want to stay later, we could do it later.
No,
Okay.
It's up to Ben. Ben's been here till 1 in the morning some nights, so
Yep.
he's used to that. I don't know if I want to bring up those memories, but what happened was, there were some major notes that had to be taken care of as it relates to the plan review and some minor ones. I have Lot 3 on the agenda tonight, but I'd like to also add Lots 2 and 4. Lot 3, I was planning to put it, I didn't expect we were going to see this being able to get here so quickly, so the minor notes were just the elevations of the perk test on Lot 3, as well as the noting there's no vernal pools. The engineer, Bruce Salick, did change the other plans. This plan here, the one that was originally set for the agenda, I was going to make it conditional to those minor notes being placed on the plan. The major issues were all resolved. The other two, the major issues have been resolved, but I'll do one at a time. I'll do the one that was on the agenda first. This is Lot 3, and your locust map is right here in his green lane, and they shaded in the lot. That was one of the requests from the original review. And they are designing house lots residential, and they have provided all the schematics and so forth. The soil testing on Lot 3 was never in question. It was done prior by GLM. From their overview, this land's been overviewed by GLM as well as Deschang, Wing, Wong, Wing. So two different soil evaluators went out to the site, I'd say over the past few years. It's still, the owner's still the trust here, the Bunter Trust, but Ben is the applicant, and that's why he's here. Obviously, he's the one that's had the soil testing completed with Deschang Wang, Deschang Wang, thank you. And so most of this work was done prior with Joe Nyhill from GLM and myself. And the notes are here. Like those, the only two notes, and I would ask Bruce before I release the plans for pre-construction to just verify the notes on the vernal pool and the perks on the elevations on the perks. But with that said, I'd recommend approval of this plan for Lot 3 Green Lane for new construction, for a 4-bedroom septic system design, and for a new well. It's all new, it's virgin land, so they're both being proposed here. If you want to look at the bigger plan, it jumps off down, the septic's in the back, septic tank, long line down with cleanouts over to this point, distribution box. It's raised, but it's within the 5 feet to groundwater. You can still have, and that's what the board should know, you can still have raised systems. Groundwater can be 7 feet, 8 feet down, and then you're 5 feet from that, and then you build the system up on that, and that's where you get some partial raised systems. And then the grading on all these lots are very drastic depending on where you are. So you'll see grading throughout. This whole site is variable, from ledge to
Yeah, I've seen a lot of
groundwater
outcrops.
changing within 2 areas. I'll show you that on Lot 2 versus Lot 1. It just changes. I think underneath the earth is probably ledge that varies tremendously, and there's some major outcrops up there.
Yeah, there are, yeah. So where's the well proposed for?
The well is, I circled it prior. Now, I'm reading upside down. Can I turn around? I've got 3 of them in front of me. Well, I believe, let me just see. There's 200, there it is right there. This is the one that they had to put a water line, so it's right at the corner of the house.
Oh, okay.
It's right there.
And it's, how deep is it?
Oh, they haven't drilled it yet, but
Okay.
they typically, it depends on what they find for fissures, where the water is located in the fissures, but I know, I don't want to make the applicant nervous, but it can go anywhere from 300 to
300,
1,000
yeah.
feet sometimes, depending on, what they find. I hope,
Okay.
wish them the best on that.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the plans subject to receipt of the amendments requested by the
Note on the
agent?
perk, note on the.
So moved.
Second?
Will that be a revised plan?
No, these can be
No,
notes at
okay.
pre-construction,
Okay.
because they were minor. They weren't the other ones had more than just those 2 issues, so.
And any other comments, questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Garbage grinder, need a deed recording. I'm sorry, I apologize. So rusty coming up here.
Recording and pre-construction comments. All
Yes.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So lots 2 and 4 were brought in today. The review was done, notes were sent to the engineer. And because of our meeting being a few weeks away.
Maybe added
lots-
now?
You want
the
to take
agenda?
those now?
Well,
You want?
It's agent's
doesn't the agent
business.
usually?
It's
does it?
agent's
So,
business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think,
You want me to?
I just
do
wanna
this
make
now?
sure.
yeah.
Cool.
You'd rather have them now, right, than,
It'd be easier that way. Okay, so this is lot 2. Lot 2,
Mark, what's the application number?
Application number 1708/09.
Yeah.
And this is the overview of the lot. Comes down that this lot has been cut out to put a septic system in there. This is lot 1, and we had to go back and reevaluate. We'll talk about that when that time comes. They had to find somewhere up further. This was wetter than this. And it changed drastically. And just so the board knows, we've been out here several times checking monitor wells as well as soil testing. And you've had 2 soil evaluators for the Board of Health out here as well, Ethan and myself. So. And this lot is further away from Maple Street. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4 towards Maple Street. So there's Green Lane. And you'll be seeing 2 and 4. Again, you can see, even in the front, all the grading that's going to be needed based on the contours out there. And so...
I'm
this
just
comes-
thinking though, so where the Birchman's house was, that's on, as you're going up Green Lane, that's on the right side. Is this on the right side or the left side? Because I thought they already
across
built
from
a
the
new
apple
house on that first lot.
So, yeah,
Isn't
this
there
is
a new
Green
small
Lane.
house?
If you came down this way, here's Town Hall over here. So this is Maple going out of town.
Yeah,
This
no.
is- And so where are they? Right here, this big house here?
That used to be their house, but I thought there was a house here already.
There is a house right here.
Oh, okay, separate
It
lot.
used to be the American Legion
Yeah.
at one
Yeah.
time. and then
Okay,
became a
that's what
two-bedroom
I was
house.
thinking of. so.
One, if you ever go by it, the wells in the driveway, but they allowed it, it was the only place. That lot was tiny. So this is all the soil testing, various results coming through. We went back to confirm the groundwater. This year was a good year to do that. We had a very wet spring. And what we were finding is it was very close to what the models were showing, so there was
Consistent.
agreement. Ethan and I worked on it together. We actually went out and read the monitor wells together with Ben as well as, and actually, I'll say the other agent too, because Beth went out with us in one of the earlier times of this year as well. So, the system would be going down here. The wells are keeping close. It's right here, again, going in very close to the other ones, a little further away though from the house. A lot of grading to get in. This plan, they had originally put the tank right here, and I told them we prefer, per our regulations, not, if it can be designed outside of the driveway, so it's not under a
Asphalt.
pavement, exactly, that we would prefer it out. They did have to extend the grading a little bit out to do that. And with that said, the one thing, Ben, if I can ask, if it's okay, the grading near this tank, I noticed, it does jump onto the other lot. Are you gonna secure easements and all for grading over here? It jumps on the lot 3? Not lot, yeah, lot 3. Lot 1, it jumps over to lot 1.
Right, well, they're most likely gonna stay in common ownership anyhow, so
Oh.
we can grade it, as long as we don't transfer it prior to grading. we'll have to
Okay,
use
yeah,
space.
you'll have to work on
Yeah.
that, just, or you're gonna end up with a wall here, and that's gonna be, more expensive, so. He has to build this up so the tank
Like a
just isn't
retaining
sticking
wall?
out of the ground.
Wouldn't be too
Unfortunately,
bad. You could come over to the
you
property
could,
line.
build a wall there,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to point that out, you had
No, I
that
see.
grading now going out there. I think that's why originally the driveway came over here on this side, and they moved it over to this side. With that said, I recommend approval.
Okay.
Yeah, right here, Ben.
This is the only one that we might come back in later to talk about the house. This is the house that is up high because of ledge.
I was
Not-
just about to ask that.
Yeah. So we designed it to meet regulations, although it's a
Yeah,
little
they
bit of a
went-
crazy
yeah.
driveway right
Thank you for
All right.
bringing that up. They did go back out to test in the areas where the houses were being proposed to show groundwater.
So this meets code, but we may explore a little bit for the house.
Okay, because I was going to ask where it ever came out on that issue in terms of giving
didn't
the
find water.
open in the back and the drainage around, but, okay, so we'll cross that bridge at another time.
This one ledges down about 2.5 feet.
All right, so
or
any conditions to go along with this garbage grinder?
Yes, a deed recording for the garbage grinder. It is
And
being
but the
designed for a
plans themselves
four-bedroom.
are all
The
set?
plan's ready for approval,
Okay,
yes.
so do we have a motion to approve this plan subject to receipt of the deed recording for the garbage grinder?
For the well and septic.
And it's a plan for well and septic.
So moved?
Second?
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
is ready, and that's lot 4, closest to Maple Street.
And at some point is one coming along? Which numbers have you done?
Yeah, 1, we went back out to retest, and that's gonna have to wait till November to go back out for groundwater, per the board's vote. This is lot 4,
What's the application number?
1213.
Okay.
I thought you had those memorized.
Yeah, no.
So many numbers we deal with. So this is the property line to the Maple Street homes. Down here, if you go by Maple Street, this is the new, well, the well, they tore the other house down. This is the new house they built on Maple Street. And so we're not too far from that location, just to give you an idea where we are here. Again, a 4-bedroom house. Well is, let me see, I looked at these a while, let's see, right there, the original plan, they're all close to the homes. It's easier for them, less water lines to put in. And then again, you'll see some major drops, it works up the hill, this is the top of the hill. And then this system, everything was able to be put on the same plan. It's at the corner, the wetlands prevented really, they had to be very creative of where they could test, as well as where things would fit for both the septic and the well. I don't think distance is going to be an issue with the well, but the issue were wetlands and ledge and other areas that wouldn't allow for a system. But this is all,
What's
Quite a
the,
distance to
oh,
them,
it is,
so-
they have cleanouts, and it's quite a distance. But we've seen this also in another part of town where they went quite a distance to find the appropriate soil.
so where's the lot line?
Lot line's right here,
And
goes right up like this.
so is there any requirement in terms of location of septic relative to the lot line?
20 feet, and they have 34 and 35.
Okay. I couldn't tell
actually
down there, it
hadn't
looked pretty
put that in.
close. Okay. And there's no wells in that
There
that
is-
back
they
area at
show-
all,
There's a
right?
well right, there's a well right here,
Okay.
as well as one, this one wouldn't
And
matter.
it meets all the requirements?
That is
for-
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
You meet the distance, it's a good question. You get so detailed into these.
Is it 125?
You say that, no, yeah. You can check. That's downhill, so that's a good thing that the well is uphill from it, but let me just double check.
That's 100, so.
Thank you for asking that. Let me just see
Yeah, I
scale.
was gonna say, I like the arcs. Just make it easy.
Yeah, he had arcs on
I
this,
know.
and then he took them off.
Usually there was arcs on all.
Yeah, there were, I know, and I asked him,
Yeah.
why'd you take them off, Bruce?
It just, you lose your sense of scale.
Let's see, so,
Right, and this is a different scale, or you're making really
yeah, we're on a 130,
smallest
yeah,
beautiful
that's
house
what's
here.
showing us, we're on a
One,
130 here.
oh,
So
okay.
it's 160.
Oh, okay, no
And
problem.
Again, I reviewed some of these prior, and then wrote the letters, but thank you. It started looking too close to me as I'm reading this, and I'm saying it's always good just to double check too. But, it's ready for approval.
All right, and subject to
Garbage
garbage
grinder.
grinder and pre-construction conference, so,
Yep.
all those in favor of approving the plan for well and septic, subject to those conditions?
Yes, I would recommend that to the board.
By saying aye? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Are we going to be signing any of this?
Yeah, it seems like we'll be signing some, but one has to come back with some modifications.
Oh, this one we're going to be signing,
Yeah.
right? The one,
Well,
I mean, no, not
No,
this one.
he's-
Lot 3 can be signed, they can do
This one,
that.
okay.
I don't have a problem.
Stony Brook is the one.
Oh, Stony Brook.
Yeah.
Okay, any more?
211 Farm Road.
Oh, all right. So, do you need anything else that you're aware of? Okay. All right.
And give me a call if you have any questions on process. What goes first, what goes second, like well, septic, and all that. The board has seen 211 Farm Road. The applicant is David Parrish, and he submitted a change to the plan. He moved the septic system. So, if you want, I can.
This was the one that had the the conservation commission restrictions.
There's two down there.
Yeah.
Get them mixed up.
I do
Which one's
too.
which?
This is what we talked about at the first meeting.
216, which is right on the water. And then he has,
211
this one's
is
kind
in.
of on the water, because the water comes in
Yeah,
like that.
it's on that back.
And this is 211. And the numbers are strange,
Something to
too.
fill out.
Yes, business card or something?
Showing the changes. Oh, it's not a bad thing to show you. So, there's the old location, right to here. They slid it over a little bit more this way.
Oh, okay.
And this could have, I don't know if he showed this to you prior, but, and then he paid the revision fee. And this is the larger plan of the whole property. This, if you ever been down that road, you notice it right away because the well's almost in the street. It's an existing property, he's renovating it. It's starting to look nice, actually, from the roadside.
Wait, is this
Yeah, keep
near
going
the,
down to Farm Pond right here.
okay.
This is that private road that has all
Yeah.
the mailboxes, like
Yep.
211 to 216. So, and it had another, and this is what we were talking about, it had another structure on site. When it was originally approved, that was the other bedroom that was being proposed.
This is hilly though, right?
Very.
Yeah,
I
steep
didn't-
incline.
Yeah, I wasn't there for the soil testing, Ethan did it, but these are all eskers, all
Mm-hmm.
gravel. I bet if you could still mine gravel, this
Mm-hmm.
probably would be all flat right now, because it's just all beautiful gravel. So, and I recommend approval of the change to the soil absorption system
And do we
being
need to
moved.
do any
Well,
conditions or?
You know, and as I checked, let me just check the outside of the envelope, was this deed restriction? Yeah, but it already has the deed restriction. But I do want to note, so it did slide a little bit, it slid a little bit from the depots, but it's all gravel. These are all eskers, so I don't have a problem with it just being a little bit off. We saw something like this on,
Because they were consistent across the
yeah.
whole, so, okay.
and we saw this actually in another site just 2 weeks ago when we looked at the site on South Main Street.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the plan for,
The revised plan for
Revised plan.
211 Farm Road.
So move.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Oh, David should be thanking you. Didn't show up for it all.
And anything else for you?
Let's see, let me just,
I'm trying to keep track of what we still have left.
let's see, no, I just had to add lots 2 and 4 Green Lane.
We have the sad story.
Okay, yeah, that one's gonna be tough, all right. So, are you here because you're interested in the Abbey Road? Okay. So, we would
don't
have to
have
take a,
Well, do we want to finish up the other things first, or?
well,
what?
that would be the thing, is whether.
I mean, I would prefer to just get through the stuff that we have on the agenda first.
And the other thing is that if it didn't go to Ellen, then, or in time, for us to have materials to look at, we don't have anything to talk about the specifics of it. I could describe what I read through all the materials, but we got in a very late request for unit number 6, was it, for Abbey Road?
From the homeowner, it's not a request of ours, it's a request of.
Yes, homeowner wrote they want to, so they have a master bedroom on the first floor, and upstairs is a bedroom, bathroom, and a loft area, and they want to, and I don't know what the elevations look like, but they want to add almost a room. You know, it doesn't show a door, but it shows a doorway for an office up there, so that would sort of be,
About 8 feet by 8 feet.
yes.
I mean, it's literally a block.
I
So
think it
the
was
space is
8'6"
already
by
there,
8'6".
they want to add a demising wall, or?
Basically, the woman works from home, and she wants to be able to have a place for her desk, so that, you know, it's more private from her husband. And she wants to build literally an 8, I think it's 8.5 feet by 8.5 feet, little cubicle space with walls.
Oh, so an addition?
Not in
No,
addition,
within the
subdividing the loft.
space.
Oh, okay, so.
In the loft space,
Right.
but it makes another room. So it's another room, and it's classified as elderly housing, which is limited to 2 bedrooms by Sherborn regs. Any room above the first floor is a bedroom, Depends on
I
whether
see.
we would consider that a room, whether we think it triggers a bedroom, yay, nay. It's just to, let me finish, it's just to go through that and see, do we think it fits within
And
the
is-
general intent, and are there any design features, is it partial walls, is there never to be a door there, that kind of thing, to isolate it, because frankly, if
You
it
can
was.
convert it.
We have things that are part of bedroom suites, where if you walk in through a room, that's the office or a sitting room into the bedroom, and it's associated, then that's okay, but this is a separate room the way it's shown, and they also want to do some work in the basement to the room there, so that would, but they said they wouldn't finish the floor, and we have this, as long as it's not completely finished. Walls tend to get finished because that's energy code requirements to insulate the walls, so you, by virtue of insulating, unless you have open insulation, you end up finishing the walls. So either you leave the ceiling or the floor unfinished, and then it qualifies as an unfinished room. So
I'm going to be
that's
honest,
the
I would
general-
prefer to actually see this in front of me before I make a, I want to get through we have a big agenda and we're not through. Yeah, well,
Well, no, but she would prefer that we stick to the other things that came in on time. This was just before us for a few hours. I know, but we don't have all the plans. It would be an issue to go get them, print them out if we have them. So, in any case. So,
if we had a really short agenda and it
Yeah.
was
right.
8 o'clock, I
And
would.
these things have been
I would be-
deferred a couple of times already. Okay, so, I know you want to leave about now, so let's see. Variances for new discussion, I would say at number 5 under Chair's Business, we somewhat covered that with that other issue, and it may warrant further discussion, but no, it's not the time.
So is that being deferred, that discussion, or are
we
you?
sort of
We
bundled it.
We
Already
had it with
okay.
the
So I
earlier
don't even
one.
need to write anything down.
With the
Yeah.
James Murphy
Yeah.
groundwater mounting
And I'm
discussion?
sure we will look at other aspects of it again,
Yeah,
but,
and some of that's sort of pushing to the July 19th agenda.
right,
Okay.
right. We talked about the posting of the minutes to the BOH website. The supplemental funds, so as I mentioned, we did get approval for that, so we're good on that. And then agent hours, so here's an issue. There are, on the timesheets for the health agents, they fill it out and it has, it's a form that was prepared by the town administrator, and then it got tweaked by various departments and people having input into it, needs of the particular departments. So it has, and you could address it better, column for office hours, other hours, field hours.
Other office hours.
Okay, and so there are hours that, and we've talked about this before, that the agents work outside of Sherborn. There's, some emergency issue that needs to be dealt with, and it doesn't make a lot of sense for someone to drive all the way to Sherborn to, read emails or respond to emails or something like that. So, and we don't have the resources. Part of the reason for the laptop is there are no resources in the office for an agent to do internet regulatory research, that sort of thing. So that has to be done at home. Same with preparing of their timesheets, has to be done at home on their own computers. And just kind of trying to keep up with the business, and just like the turnaround here of plans came in today and Mark reviewed them, and he explained them to us and we got to approve them tonight. So in trying to get things done, there are hours that happen outside of town. And again, that goes to the work-at-home policy, that we just have issues where people want timely responses, but not everybody, some people don't care, but some people do care about whether
Do we want to
They're
buffer
working
this with some
outside,
sort of
so-
existing conversation with the town administrator?
Yeah, I think it,
Sounds lovely.
and,
I think so.
and
Thank you, Matt.
again, we've had these
Yeah, yeah.
discussions,
Carefully
but maybe
possible.
we're, to a
That
new
sounds fine.
place because we keep going over them. And frankly, in the past, the town administrator didn't like the idea, but then basically said, as long as I have some correspondence from him,
I think we
and
just
many
want
discussions
resolution, so we can just
where,
say, here's the plan, we're done now, or, you know what I mean?
Well-
Documentation, I think.
Well, we're compliant with the bylaws, we have a workflow that delivers the services to the town in a cost-effective, sensible fashion that is legally compliant with all bylaws, and that we can then sort of track and manage appropriately, either by work product or by,
all right, I'll caution you that we've been at that place a number of times already.
yeah.
So it'll go to everything's okay. Again, I have stuff that says, as long as we had an agreement and the board authorized the agent or agents to do that, to address the work appropriately, then that was good and okay, and then it circles back to not being okay, and then it's
Sisyphus looked like
okay
he was having
again.
a good time. I'm
So-
ready. There's a rock, there's a hill, I'm a happy man.
Okay, terrific. You will be extraordinarily happy then. So we have a motion to authorize Matt to also address health agent issues of hours worked outside of town.
So moved.
And second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Let's see. 44 North Main Street.
Yeah, I read that.
Okay, so I will say this is the one that has to do with someone who's having financial difficulties, I think in the interests of then selling the property. Their costs, the septic needs repair replacement, and the Council on Aging stepped forward and asked if the town could waive its fees for this. So initially, I was hoping that the town at a higher level would look at this, because to me, it is saying, I mean, they are real costs that the
Right.
board incurs, and so it's saying that we're going to take taxpayer money and underwrite somebody's expenses, and as much as it seems like it'd be nice to help people out, it goes to the slippery slope, and should we be doing that without, I don't know. It is the townspeople's money
Yeah.
that we're choosing, so it's not just this magical pool of money that
Well-
appears in our
Do
budget.
we even have the purview
So-
to waive a town fee? Do we, as a board?
Yeah.
We do, okay.
And I spoke with Ellen just about, the fees really do cover our costs, the real costs. The agent has to spend a lot of time reviewing, going out in the field for, various steps in the process, and there's a lot of administration associated with it, so they're not,
Darrell, if
they really are covering costs.
Might be able
But
to just add something to it, and that is that when Title V was renewed into a new format and new regulations in 1995, they set up betterment funds. Towns started realizing they shouldn't be in the banking business because we were contracting out the work and setting up the loans per the state's betterment process. They actually gave every town the opportunity to up to $200,000 for failed septic systems. Banks have taken that over, that role with low-interest loans. And it's for that purpose, for someone that can't afford the fees and as well as the cost to install. So I don't know if that's been looked at, but that's another opportunity if they so wish.
Doesn't sound like this person
Yeah, I
has
think-
the monies to take
Like a
out a
truck
loan,
versus-
and also, they wouldn't, for them to get approved, it would be.
Right, and I don't know if there are any ways to have liens or something
That's
that
how
at the
that
time
works,
of the
yeah.
sale of the property,
That the
that's when
fees
one
come out?
recoups the
Yes,
fees or
and they pay right at
something.
the time
Well,
of the
that's,
sale.
so
Along those
almost like
lines.
the buyer's almost funding
Yep,
the
exactly.
fee application.
Right, because they're getting something for it, so,
Right.
but maybe,
I just thought it might be enlightening. We had a recent situation, like you're referring to, a client who was in quite in desperate need. And I was made aware of the Sherborn Benevolent Society Association, who I approached them. It turns out didn't have to go to them, but they were more than willing, and it was specifically a septic issue, an application expense issue, that, they said, well, have them talk to us. It's the type of thing that we can often do. And they worked in the background. They're a very quiet group, but the point is, It's a group supported by donations from people in the town. They have something like a 5-6 member board that, takes things under advisement, and it's exactly the kind of thing they do to take someone past the step that they can't get past. So I really think you have an opportunity here to not set a precedent, but give a very valid referral to this person to where they might not have known where to go.
Okay, so maybe, I don't know, what do you think? Recommend that they try that out, and should we
I mean, I
ask
think,
somebody to look into, is there a way to collect the fee later?
right, so that we could
Without
delay.
it becoming an
Right.
incredible headache, so.
Yeah.
And then I guess
The
in,
town clerk is on the Benevolent Society board.
So I would refer
Mr.
Karen
Escalante.
Jewell, town clerk, it sounds like.
And then
Okay.
there's a pro bono attorney that's obviously involved in this as well, and so if for some reason that,
Don't refer to the town clerk, refer to Carol Marple, not
Right.
the town.
Yeah.
right,
Oh, okay.
because
Oh, okay.
she's a member of the
Be the
benevolent,
town
right.
clerk, But that's not.
Oh,
Separate
okay,
from
Not a
the-
duty.
Where I want them to
Yeah.
talk to.
okay.
Right, and so the backup option could be to reach out to maybe the attorney, and I wouldn't mind doing this, to see if there's a way that P&S could be structured to have the buyer basically pay the fee, and that we would just maybe approve a waiver to have the fee be paid at the time of the transaction,
okay,
you know?
sure, if you're willing to do that, it'd be great. Okay. All right, any other discussion on that? I mean, did anyone feel we should waive fees?
I mean, if there's a giant bucket of money, I'd sure pour some out, but I think your point of this is a community, like ultimately this is asking other taxpayers to provide benefit to an individual, and I
And
think
then
that's
where
a
do
very
we,
tricky slope.
how do
as-
we, evaluate what's a valid and what's not, and
Yeah.
what is deserving of that, so.
Okay, so
Yes.
if I let Karen Jewell know, refer
To the Benevolent Society,
to
yeah.
the Benevolent Society,
Of which
Then-
Carol Marple's a
right.
board member, yeah.
If that works out, we don't have to worry about
The rest of
the
it.
fees at the time of the sale. Okay.
Right.
Right.
I just want to get that right.
Okay. Okay, we don't have the minutes. I've added, all right, I guess. So can you still stay, and we could talk about this?
Yeah.
Floor plans and,
Ellen, so are you going to just let me know what
Yeah.
they say,
yeah.
and then
Well,
I'll know
I'll
if I
have
need
to
call the
refer,
attorney? Okay.
so that might not be till a week or
I'm on
so.
vacation.
Back from
Okay.
vacation. Do you want to take a brief recess to print out whatever the materials are?
yeah, let's check if you have them.
Okay, who did they come from?
Her
they-
name was Kim Legis, I can't remember exactly.
I don't think,
Stamps,
I'll look.
stuff.
Okay,
Oh, good,
I'm
thank you.
not aware of it.
all
I
right.
did not get it.
Yeah, no, it was late this afternoon, and then,
Wait, photocopy that.
is that all three floors with the amendments?
So you want a
That they,
copy?
with their additions and that sort of thing?
Oh, I mean, no, but it's so simple that if you give me 60 seconds to talk to it.
No, and I went through all the materials, so I could, but we're taking a very brief recess, and Ellen will see if we officially have it, and she could just bring the whole package, so the whole board has the benefit
I
of
just think
that.
there's a way that this fits very much within the way you guys have addressed this already with us. So I think it's possibly a 2-minute conversation.
I would say the basement room is, I'd say the upstairs room is different. It's just different. They're all different.
I would say, let's just,
Could we-
Explanation, don't say no, please.
I'd say
No,
let's.
I didn't
if-
say no, I
would
just said
love to
it's
just
different.
pause. If we're sort of in recess, let's be fully in recess, so that
Yes.
we sort of have
I could use a bathroom break anyway.
Okay,
fabulous.
all right, we're on recess for a few minutes.
Perfect.
I thought I looked to see if she sent it to you, but I guess.
And so Bob, your involvement here
No,
is
'cause
sort of
the
not
new
as
things coming
as
in
sort
are
of
different.
An expert in the property as opposed to any kind of business.
An
interest.
applicant.
All right, so I'll describe to you. Oh,
Yes,
yes,
please.
yes. Sorry. So I'll describe to you what I read.
So it went to you
Yes.
by email?
So do you have it?
What else I went to?
Not with me.
I
but-
didn't get it, no. There's
Because it
nothing,
definitely went to me. So she forwarded
not
it to
on my
me after she
computer.
sent it.
she must have spelt my name wrong.
Oh, I didn't check.
Something's spelled
Yeah,
wrong.
something's, okay. All right, so we're back and we're discussing a possible modification to a floor plan at one of the Abbey Road units. So
Do we
the
wanna
person
start on
wrote
that?
in, and before they went ahead with this work and submitted the application for a building permit, they wanted to get a sense, since we don't have the official, especially now, right before us, they wanted to get a sense of
It's usually done by a preliminary building application, which does have a fee.
Aha, okay. All right. All right, so we're going to discuss this quickly then.
And so just so I'm clear, so she owns the house or this?
She will next week.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
She's a PNS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a,
Close it.
Okay.
and they're
Okay.
two people, a husband and wife. So, so this would be the main floor, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4 rooms, and then a bedroom, 5. And then this is currently unfinished, and they propose
That's the
to put in
Basement.
some utility rooms down this side over here, a half bath over here, an extra little sink out there, and then exercise bicycles here, and use this for an exercise room. The husband is apparently an avid bicyclist, and but they say it'll remain concrete, just the concrete floor, so
Not
unfinished floor.
finished, okay.
But it'll look more finished, but, okay,
Okay.
so we still have not so many rooms. So then the one upstairs would go off of there, and it would be right there, kind of across from this. So, and they had an opening on this side, and on this side, they had a transom window looking out into the loft area.
So
They
an
just wanted to
interior
know,
window.
would that be okay?
So, can they,
So-
are the walls proposed to go to the ceiling, or could there be?
Yeah, see, that's what I didn't get a chance
yeah.
to ask, because
really quick.
if I could just mention, in the email, they said it would be like a cubicle, which then made me think, does that mean
Partition walls
cubicle in
or-
size-wise, or cubicle in partial wall height? Partial wall height, to me, is a no-brainer.
I can give you all the answers.
Full
to
wall.
this
Okay,
question.
right.
So,
Okay. yeah. So it's like
now
here,
we'll let you talk, because I've said pretty much all I know.
Okay,
There.
let me- That's the way. Okay. And the walls do go all the way to the ceiling as planned. There's a window on this side, and there's a cased opening on this side. I don't remember the dimension of the cased opening.
so it's like, it looks like a wall, a door jamb, but no door.
Exactly, that's
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one thing they wanted to do.
I would say it was 3-ish feet, so,
Yeah, that
not,
sounds about
not
right.
6 feet wide.
No, 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 definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely, I didn't mean to hide.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
3 feet sounds about right. I mean, the whole thing is only 8 feet, so.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not gonna be a 6-foot wide case. This space is, I think it's 69 square feet. And then the other thing they wanna do is, this plan doesn't show it, but they're like, the hot water heater and whatever. And then there's some, I can't remember the date. They basically want to just closet that stuff off. Where's the- Sorry, I did it on the wrong side.
No, that's the
Is that the
side.
right side?
Yep.
Yep. They wanted to put a sink and a toilet.
Yeah, half bath.
Yeah.
And the half
then-
bath would have a sink and a toilet in it, and then another sink outside the room as well.
And then, these walls, as I recall, are already sheet rock. And so this is the way that, from hearing, not you two, of course, but from hearing you and your colleague, former colleague, speak about how you address the room count at Abbey Road, you told us on many occasions, and I don't actually agree with your assessment, but that's a whole nother conversation that we don't need to get into. I'm just gonna go to what your assessment has been over the last year, when we had this conversation about other
you all said was that we had 4 rooms at Abbey Road, okay? And that there are 2 ways, if I'm telling you guys things you already know, you can stop me. But basically, there are 2 ways, and under Sherborn regulations, that you worry about bedrooms. One is you actually count bedrooms, and the other is you count rooms, and you divide by 2, and you round down. I have, okay. Where I disagree with you is that I read your rules to say that you don't do that counting rooms and dividing by 2 process until you get to more than 8 rooms. I believe it says that in the regulations. So therefore, I would argue that this whole conversation is completely unnecessary. But the board, 6 months ago, said, no, we don't agree that that's our regulation. We believe you have to count rooms, divide by 2, and round down, no matter what the number is, okay? At the time, you told me there were 4 rooms, and so therefore, because we were trying to finish 2 basement rooms in number 4, okay? And what you guys said was, no, you can't finish 2 rooms because you
Then it
can't
would-
take the 4-week that
It would
exists
go up to 3
and
bedrooms.
finish 2,
Yeah.
because then you get to 6,
Yeah,
divide by
yeah,
2,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you're at 3, game over.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't agree that that's what your rule is, but that's the approach you took. So the argument I would make about why this works is that whether you count, sorry, my glasses.
So this is a,
Even if you count this as a room, and I think you could argue whether it is or it isn't, with a cased opening and a window in it, but I'll just stipulate, I'll say that's another room. So now we've gone from
1,
4
2.
to 5.
Yeah,
okay?
so it's still 2.5.
But what Daryl has written to us at that time, she was great because she really clarified how this works. She said, as long as you leave the floor unfinished, then it's not a room.
Or
Okay.
the ceiling.
And so that was a long.
Which is not my rule, that's what's been done for
Okay, but
Yeah.
whatever.
a very long time
Doesn't-
before
Practice.
doesn't
this
matter.
board. Yeah.
But, so the argument that I would make is that you guys say we had 4, okay?
No, we have
We're
5,
adding
we're 2.5,
one,
we're down to
5.
2.
The concrete floor in the basement is
Doesn't.
not a room.
Right.
Divide by 2, 2.5, round down, we're good to go. That's the
Okay, so
mental
going back
exercise.
to, right, and that's what I said at the outset. Going back, though, the wrinkle here would be,
But it's
although I would say it's elderly housing, so maybe there's a difference there. If we called this a room, it's 2 rooms on the second floor, this is clearly a bedroom, now you have 3 bedrooms. But it's elderly housing, which is restricted to 2
I will
bedrooms.
tell you that state regulations say that any room under 70 square feet is not a bedroom.
And I do know in Sherborn that in the past, the board, a past board, has ruled, it was for a neighbor of mine, that a room that was much smaller than that, they counted as a bedroom, was on the second floor.
I
So
feel
in
like,
terms of consistency, I
yeah.
just want to lay it all out there. I'm just saying, this is the issue we have to deal with. If it was,
Yeah.
Well,
So-
it,
69 square feet.
yeah, I mean, my kids have small rooms. My son has a pretty small room, so I could actually measure. But I think the issue is, I feel unprepared to give you a sentiment. It doesn't sound, too out of whack to me, but I also feel like I want to read the definitions. Yeah, yeah.
It's the only.
Yeah, so
So it sounds like we'd be open to future
Yeah,
conversation.
I'm
but we
open,
want to
but
more-
I need to do a little homework on my own, because, I mean, as a LSP and someone who looks at things like uses and activities in houses all the time, and people telling me there's not anyone living in the basement, and then 2 years later, I go, and there is like, the son's bachelor pad is down there, and so people change over time, and I'm not saying they would, it's when it gets sold, or is the next person going to use it, hey, I have a little kid, and I'm going to throw them
Are
in
there
that
other
room.
construction things that are sort of in play for the homeowner, or do you have a sense
so-
of that,
so
if there's
this
some
is-
flexibility
yeah,
either about like,
This is the personal situation,
Yeah.
and it's why it's nice that you guys were willing to
Yeah.
think about this tonight, is that they're closing, as I said, in a couple of days, but they're not moving in
Yeah.
until the end of August. They have a window to do this
Yeah.
work, and that's why it would be
Yeah.
helpful to them to have
Yeah.
the answer.
so do we want to carry this
So,
to the
yeah.
July 17th meeting?
no, I think it's worth, right.
Yeah, I
Have a
just
chance to
feel a
do your-
little
No, 'cause
unprepared, yeah.
And for me, I would
You
say
put it
also
in
don't go to the
with very
ceiling.
short notice, so I think.
So I think the things, if you can communicate back to the homeowner, like for this, I want to learn more. And I think I've got a modestly open mind, which in like this day and age is pretty good. I'd be curious to know sort of at that July meeting if there's any flexibility. Because I think for me, it's much less worried about what they'll use it for, but it's sort of the future occupants of the
Exactly,
home.
that's-
And so if there are any things in the building that can make it as unroom-like as still fits their needs, that helps make it easier for me.
Well, I
Yeah,
think
like the
reason-
office
whole-
concept.
The
Right.
whole reason for it is sound abatement, frankly.
Okay, so that makes it trickier.
And that's why a half wall, I don't think
Yeah.
there's nothing to do with.
Well, wait, so, but is it just a husband and wife?
Yeah.
So who's up here?
I assume, I don't know. I mean, I haven't-
Right, I mean, I guess just, I'm not sure what the noise abatement issue really is.
Well, I mean, that's not
But I mean,
really for us to get into.
No, but
And it
if you're
doesn't
saying that the
become a
only reason it's going
consideration.
all the way to the top is noise abatement,
But I think we can certainly
Yeah.
invite them to come and have the conversation,
Yeah.
sort of make the
Yeah.
request. It sounds like the board would be open to that. I think the thing to communicate, like,
So-
there's some ambivalence in this structure.
Just to give-
Honestly, you're killing them in terms of their timeline.
well,
But I think it's like,
when did this come to our attention?
This afternoon.
Okay, so,
No, I'm just saying, but
Right.
now you're talking about waiting a
I
month.
can't, I mean,
not
yeah, no,
yeah,
no.
it is.
No, but like, I totally hear you, and if there were, again, a sort of bucket of time to do it, or if there'd been more lead time, I'd certainly have been happy to do it today. For me, it's just trying to balance to say, I've got something I'm not an expert in that I'm hearing about and that I haven't seen the materials for, and so it's hard for me to say, I can totally decide on this, but I think for the question of if we're exploring, if we're sort of open to it, it sounds
Yeah.
like there's an openness to it. That timeline, I totally hear is hard, and if I could make it easier, I'd love to, but I feel uncomfortable with the information I have right now.
So just a little background for you to think about. We've had things in the past where someone's got, a kitchen, and they want to have a dining area, but they put in little bitty wall, small wall and a column here going up to give some sort of kind of
like
visual
a break.
separation.
Yeah, space.
But we've treated it, depending, as one room, so.
Is there any?
That's different.
And then the state regulation is 70 square feet for a room,
Yeah.
For a bedroom.
per bedroom,
But
okay.
is
In
that
other words,
the
I'm
housing
stipulating
code
that's a
versus?
Right.
Housing code and septic code are different animals.
Okay.
And we use them sometimes to help guide decisions, but that, so it's a real mishmash. And I forget, there are some things that make that septic, anything's habitable, but for building code,
Yeah.
it's not, so
Yeah.
they're just different, and it makes it hard. You really have to wade through and try and come up with
Yeah,
something.
and-
Again, as you're pointing out, it's a physical structure, so no matter what they plan to do,
It's
it's
the
a
future
physical
use, yeah.
structure.
What about a deed?
Allows you further time, but also might be helpful to them. And again, I don't have, I just want to help these people, right?
Yeah.
I don't have anything in this, I'm not making any money doing it, but.
We're making even less.
Yeah.
And we're trying to help as well.
Zero. So, can I tell them that this board will not consider what they're gonna do in the basement a room because of the concrete floor, as you guys have said in the past?
Yeah, I think that part.
Consistent
words,
with
I
what
can-
we've done before,
Going
so.
forward on the basement project.
Exactly.
They're not,
Closing the door on the upstairs.
exactly.
So to speak.
Yeah.
And I guess there's still plans that need to come out, correct? And then the agent will have a chance to review and confirm, but then it's the usual,
But there's nothing
Unfinished
I've heard that would make me
room
want to be
issues.
inconsistent with past boards. I'd sort of want to consider it, if there's sort of any ask, to consider that ask specifically, but certainly if that's what we've done in the past, I don't have any independent agenda to say, no, I love basement living, it's the best.
Yeah.
Concrete floors are like the new gluten-free.
No, I think the basement sounds more straightforward than this, because, like I said, for me, it's all about, I want to look at the definitions myself, and,
For the upstairs.
yeah, for the upstairs space.
But it
Yeah.
doesn't, yeah.
It doesn't
So at least
preclude
I can
it.
tell
Yeah.
them, as long as you've got a concrete floor, you're not creating a room, therefore you're not, in
Right.
other words, they're not imperiling
The upstairs by the downstairs.
upstairs. The upstairs is kind of a standalone decision in your minds. The other thing, by the way,
and can I just check, so, Mark, when you get plans to review, if you saw an unfinished room, you would do the normal procedure, wouldn't be in the room count? Is that how you would
It's
proceed
unfinished,
if
it
you were
doesn't go into
reviewing?
the room count.
That's just sort of consistent
Okay,
with what we said for the
Unfinished.
stable.
If this comes in soon, then...
On the basement, if it comes in, it's straightforward from a BOH perspective. Okay, great. And then the only other thing I would say about the upstairs, as you do your research, because I hear you that you want to do some research. So what I would ask of this board is, do the research on whether you think, my perspective is your law, your rule, and Title V both say that you don't do this count rooms and divide by 2 and round down unless you're above 8. That's the way I read your rules and Title V.
That's easy for me to check into.
I agree,
Yeah.
and I would encourage you to
I'm
do-
happy to take a look at that before the next
Awesome.
meeting.
So that's one thing. The other thing I would just say is that the Abbey Road is a key situation because it was done under Title V, because Sherborn doesn't have any rules about older, 55 and over. So therefore, we defaulted to the state rules, which are 150 gallons per two-bedroom unit, right? No, otherwise, in Sherborn, it would be 220 for two bedrooms, am I right?
Yes,
No, okay, thank you. And so, we built this really
with
under...
no garbage. Oh, go ahead.
With no garbage, thank you.
There's like the garbage grinder union somewhere that is like Sherborn is my least favorite.
They're like,
Exactly. But in any case, we built this under Title V regulations because Sherborn
I get-
doesn't
I get it,
have
yeah,
regulations. So it's a little bit of an odd construct to then say, well, it's 150 gallons under Title V, that's what the requirement is, and then to not follow Title V rules about what a bedroom is and what a room is and this, round down and all of that. You're kind of going back and forth.
well,
between-
yeah, like,
Except-
I need to just,
Except
But I just
to
wanted to encourage
qualify
you to
for this
think about those
housing,
things.
there really needs to be just one person, I believe, over 55. And if, let's say if this was a beautiful second bedroom up here, now you have 3 bedrooms and you potentially have lots of occupancy, which then wouldn't, the usage might not match with that special 150 gallons for 2 bedrooms. That is a special thing for elderly. So, and so it's not so much the room count in this case as it is a room on the second floor.
Right.
Does it look and smell like a bedroom, and how's it going to be used? So
Right,
those are just the things to consider. I'm not saying one way or the other, I'm just saying those are.
so it doesn't
that's
sound
more
like
the
anyone
issue
About
than
is
the
the
saying
lifetime of the home.
we're
No, I'm not
adverse to
gonna
it,
say
yeah,
no. I
yeah.
just-
And it's,
obviously-
it's not a municipality where it's all just going into a sewer and being handled. It's
Right.
going into a system that's been, designed.
Geared
for-
to.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
All right.
Just trying to make sure.
I get it.
So,
Thank you for listening to that.
and do you
Absolutely.
want your copy back? 'Cause-
Well, no, I need it.
Oh, because
Oh,
now we
now
drew
it's
on it.
entered in,
Copy.
okay.
Yeah.
We have
Okay.
payroll to, right? We have
Okay.
payroll?
And I believe all we're doing now is signing plans, so I'm going to close the meeting. And,
Oh, do you want
Oh.
to note receipt of the food establishment inspection report?
oh, yes, thank you. How did I miss that?
Yeah.
I've read through them.
Okay.
There's only one.
Oh, because, and signing of warrants and payroll. Okay,
Yes.
so we have 2 more items. So the food inspection inspections make me think about our food inspector who came in and did this round. But the contract is coming to a close at the end of this month, and I just wanted to confirm, so shall we authorize Ellen
Right.
to contact Health Agent Halal and confirm that she's still interested in taking on the food inspection duties? And I thought, actually, after reading this, it might be nice, too, to have somebody close at hand, because there are a few things that could use some follow-up that were noted on these.
Definitely.
So, and having somebody who could swing by a little more frequently, I think might be nice. But is everyone in agreement that
Yes.
Ellen can?
Yep.
And note,
Noted.
after she confirms with Agent Halal, to then let the current food inspector know that, just for reasons of streamlining, for budget and other purposes, that we're bringing this back into employee task.
Okay, so do you want to vote on that, just to authorize
Okay.
me to do that?
So do we have a motion to authorize Ellen to make the necessary contacts to straighten out the logistics of food inspections?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, and then
Do you want to do the
warrants.
so mover or the seconder? I don't want to take off.
Yeah, no, I
All right.
It could,
I like the
Yeah, game
septics
of
and the
chicken.
wells, and you can deal with the foods and the sharps.
Perfect. Like, you got the munchies or you got heroin, I'm your guy.
so warrants and payroll, you just have things that require now 3 signatures these days? Okay.
So do you want to do that right now?
Yeah. And do we need to do that in meeting? Shall I release Rick?
No, you don't.
Okay, so I'm going to close the meeting so that you can go home
Make
a
you switch
smidgen
into
earlier.
the Properties. So that,
Okay, this is a different one,
That's
so
just
I'm
a
gonna
So you're
keep the
adjourning.
packages.
Yes, we're adjourned. Yep.
So that's